Chapter 1, Caught in the Act in the Celestial Kingdom, during the first year of Emperor Filial and Kulturt's reign, on the 15th day of the 11th month. An imperial edict reverberated through the 6 palaces, reaching even Kara Lance within the desolate Lance Palace. Noble consort Ivy Lance of the Palace of Eternal Joy, possessing grace and virtue, gentle and kind, with a harmonious disposition and wise demeanor, adorned with serene and dignified beauty. The position of Empress, sharing my very being, attending to ancestral rites, and mothering all under heaven, is not easily bestowed. Today marked the Empress' coronation of her own sister, Helena Lance. Outside the Lance Palace, joyous air prevailed, within, a chilling desolation reigned. 3 months prior, she had been the Empress of the Middle Palace. 3 months later, the husband who had once shared intimate moments with her was about to welcome a new Empress, her very own sister. As for her, she was discarded in the Lance Palace, merely existing. Kara Lance should have been consumed by despair, yet upon hearing this news, a flicker of fragile hope ignited within her. The new Empress was her own sister, perhaps, she would come to rescue her. Kara Lance's pale face and listless eyes gradually regained a glimmer of light. Soon enough, the person she yearned for appeared. Helena Lance, with her radiant beauty, approached slowly, her graceful figure swaying like a willow in the wind. Seeing Helena Lance arrive, Kara Lance, as if glimpsing hope, hastily set down the water pail and rushed towards her. "Sister, you finally came. You're here to rescue me, aren't you?" Kara Lance, her face alight with anticipation, reached out to grasp Helena Lance's hand. Their sisterly bond had been strong since childhood. She believed Helena Lance had come to free her from the Lance Palace. Helena Lance swiftly retreated a few steps. Looking at the haggard Kara Lance, she curled her lips slightly and spoke with an air of haughty superiority. "Rescue you? Someone who consorted with the prince? How could this Empress possibly rescue you?" She placed her hand delicately on the arm of her attendant, her gaze sweeping over Kara Lance with a satisfied smile. "Helena," Kara Lance faltered, staring blankly at Helena Lance. She could scarcely believe that her once gentle sister could utter such words to her own flesh and blood. 3 months ago, on the night of the Mid-Autumn Festival, amidst the palace banquet, she had been framed and caught in a compromising situation with 9th Prince Tristan Royce. "Sister, are you truly foolish, or are you feigning ignorance? Do you believe His Majesty is unaware of your innocence? Do you believe I am unaware?" A mocking smile played on Helena Lance's lips as she looked at Kara Lance with contempt, as if recounting the most ludicrous jest. "What are you saying? How could that be? If His Majesty knew I was wrongly accused, why would he banish me to the Lance Palace?" Kara Lance's eyes widened, her throat parched, her voice hoarse. She should have realized it sooner. Because all of this was orchestrated by me and His Majesty. The purpose? To usurp your position as Empress and claim it for myself. Helena Lance covered her mouth with a laugh, her eyes filled with pity as she looked at Kara Lance. Helena Lance continued, "Did you truly believe His Majesty loved you? If he truly loved and cared for you, how could he not listen to your explanation? How could he immediately condemn you, accusing his own Empress of consorting with the prince? For all these years, his love has been for you, you were the one he met first. Sister, you were merely a pawn in his game of ascension, a wife wedded for the treasure map you possessed and the sacred edict that solidified his claim to the throne. Now, sister, you hold no further use, naturally, there's no need to keep you. As for the Empress's position, it was always meant for me. You've warmed the seat for a few months, you should be content." Helena Lance spoke with a face brimming with malice. Kara Lance listened silently, each word a blade slicing into her heart, shredding it repeatedly until only mangled flesh and blood remained. So, the oaths sworn upon mountains and seas were all lies. She had naively believed she'd found true love, but in the end, she was nothing more than a pawn in their hands. No wonder Victor Royce's inquiries were always veiled, it was all a pretext to steal what was rightfully hers. She had been too naive, believing their sweet words, believing in their so-called deep affection. Kara Lance, her face ashen, softly inquired, "Why would you betray me? I never mistreated you." Today, even in death, she must die knowing the truth. Suppressing the boundless hatred within her heart, Kara Lance feigned disbelief. "Why? Because everything you have belongs to me, the birthright of the legitimate daughter, the Empress's position, all mine. I'm merely reclaiming what is rightfully mine. Father intended to marry my mother as his principal wife, but because of grandfather's decree, your mother became the Empress, while my mother was relegated to concubine status. Do you understand the suffering of a concubine? Do you understand the plight of an illegitimate daughter? The feeling of being forever beneath you? All of this should have been yours. Do you know how your mother died? Let me tell you, she didn't die of illness. My mother and I poisoned her, adding toxins to her food, bit by bit, until she perished. Vipers. You'll meet a grim end. If there's an afterlife, I will not spare you." Kara Lance hadn't imagined that this madwoman was also responsible for her mother's death. Consumed by rage, she lunged at Helena Lance, but two eunuchs restrained her, leaving her only able to glare at Helena with burning hatred. "Say what you will, today is your death day. Someone, beat her to death with clubs." Helena Lance, no longer paying her any mind, retreated a few steps. The eunuchs immediately advanced, raining blows upon her until she was a mangled mess of blood and flesh. As consciousness faded, Kara Lance clung to her senses, her eyes fixed on Helena Lance in the Eternal Harmony Palace, etching the image of her enemies into her memory, vowing vengeance for her mother and herself. She swore, if there were an afterlife, she would make these people wish they were dead. Seeing her gaze, Helena Lance couldn't help but recoil in fear. Chapter 2, Rebirth at 15. Kara Lance slowly opened her eyes, finding herself upon a grand bed of intricately carved pearwood, beneath beige drapes cascading like a waterfall, resembling the Milky Way. Where am I? Am I still alive? Who saved me? I moved my body, yet felt no pain. What is happening? I immediately got out of bed, found a mirror, and examined myself from head to toe, only to see a beauty reflected back at me, skin like congealed fat, neck like a larva, teeth like melon seeds, a broad forehead, elegant eyebrows, a charming smile, and bright, sparkling eyes. This is me, the me before entering the palace. No, looking at the youthful features in the mirror, it's clearly the young Kara Lance. I stared blankly at the beautiful young woman in the mirror, then at the room I was in. It was clearly my lady's chamber in the Chancellor's residence. I have been reborn, but what year and month is it? Has my mother been harmed yet? Kara Lance furrowed her brow in thought. Click, the door opened. A maid in a pale pink dress entered. Upon seeing Kara Lance, her face lit up with joy. "Miss, you're finally awake." She then immediately turned and instructed the maids outside before quickly returning. Kara Lance looked up. It was Autumn Snow, with her round face, small mouth, and eyes filled with delight. Autumn Snow was one of my dowry maids. When I was banished to the cold palace and endured all manner of humiliation, only Autumn Snow, when no one was looking, would sneak in to visit, bringing me food and warm clothes. I was banished to the cold palace. Autumn Snow's days certainly weren't easy either, yet she always remembered me. Thinking of this, tears welled up in Kara Lance's eyes. Seeing Kara Lance staring at her, and noticing she was only wearing her nightgown, Autumn Snow hurried to the wardrobe and retrieved a dark red, gold-embroidered cross-collar robe. "Miss, please put on your clothes. Wearing so little on the cold floor, you'll catch a chill." "Autumn Snow, what happened to me? Why are you so worried about me?" Kara Lance looked at Autumn Snow, her face bewildered. Only by understanding what year and month it was, and what had transpired, could she devise a plan. "Miss, could it be that you've forgotten everything that happened before because of falling into the lake?" Autumn Snow, who was tying Kara Lance's sash, looked at her questioningly. Kara Lance rubbed her forehead. I just feel a bit dizzy, perhaps I haven't fully recovered. Tell me what happened. Miss, you and second miss were admiring the snow in the garden when you accidentally slipped and fell into the lake. You've been unconscious for 3 days now, frightening madam to death. Autumn Snow felt something was amiss and carefully observed Kara Lance, worried she might be unwell. So that's it. I must be 15 years old. I remember in my past life, during the winter of my 15th year, after a snowfall, Helena Lance and I were admiring the snow in the garden. Helena Lance suggested we go to the plum garden to appreciate the plum blossoms, and on the way, I fell into the lake. Kara Lance narrowed her eyes. In her past life, she had considered it an accident, but now it seemed clear that someone had deliberately caused it. As I walked past the lake, it was as if someone had stepped on my skirt, causing me to lose my footing and fall into the lake. The winter lake water was bone-chilling. After being rescued, I developed a persistent high fever and remained unconscious for 3 days before waking up. She remembered the one who walked behind her, Helena Lance. So, Helena Lance had been plotting against her every minute of every day. In her past life, she harbored no ill will, naively believing the world to be a simple and beautiful place. She never suspected that evil lurked so close, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. Kara Lance clenched her fists, vowing silently, Helena Lance, for all the suffering you inflicted upon me in my past life, I shall repay you twofold in this one. Suddenly, a flurry of footsteps approached from outside. A beautiful, pale face soon appeared before Kara Lance. The woman hurried to her bedside, grasped her hand, and said with heartfelt concern, Kara, you're awake. These past few days, I've been worried sick. Without you, what would I do? This anxious and overjoyed lady was her mother, Ivy Lance. Though 30 years of age, she looked no older than 25 or 26, possessing both noble elegance and gentle grace. Seeing her mother before her, Kara Lance's tears flowed freely. Seeing her daughter cry, Ivy Lance asked worriedly, Kara, what's wrong? Are you still feeling unwell? She touched Kara's forehead, confirming the fever had broken, and felt a slight relief. Feeling her mother's warmth and care, Kara Lance buried her face in Ivy Lance's embrace, her sobs gradually subsiding. In this life, she would protect her mother, ensuring that Sophia Lincoln and Helena Lance's schemes would never succeed. Ivy Lance gently stroked her daughter's back, comforting her, it's all right now, it's all right. While comforting her daughter, Ivy Lance's heart ached. Because of past grievances, Kara Lance had been deprived of familial affection since childhood, with only Ivy offering unwavering protection within their household. Her daughter, the rightful heir, deserved boundless love and reverence, yet she possessed only the empty title, facing constant coldness and disdain. Meanwhile, Helena Lance, the illegitimate daughter, enjoyed her father's love, her mother's protection, and the old madam's adoration. When her daughter was younger, she would often ask why her father never visited. Ivy could only remain silent. At that moment, the maid Lucy Brown entered, Madam, eldest miss, the fourth prince and second miss have come to visit eldest Mississippi. Kara Lance was now 15. Because of her betrothal to the fourth prince, Victor Royce, since childhood, they had never deliberately avoided each other. On the contrary, they often spent time together, along with Helena Lance. In her past life, the three of them had appeared close, but now she realized it was all a facade. Kara Lance coolly observed Lucy Brown, carefully assessing her. The maid nodded slightly, a shy blush coloring her youthful face. Her bright, captivating eyes sparkled. During her confinement, she had thought everything through. If they truly intended to frame her for adultery, someone must have colluded with Helena Lance. How else could they have so easily brought the ninth prince into her chambers and been caught in such a compromising situation? She recalled that day, Autumn Snow had left the palace on an errand for her, leaving only her personal maid, Lucy Brown, by her side. Furthermore, when Helena Lance and Victor Royce had framed her, catching her, in the act, as she tried to explain to Victor Royce, Lucy Brown had insinuated that she had indeed committed adultery with the ninth prince. Having betrayed her, do not blame her for her ruthless heart and tactics. It's just that now is not the time to show her hand, nor can she reveal her true capabilities. Kara, what happened to your hand? Ivy Lance asked, worriedly taking Kara Lance's hand. Kara Lance only then returned to her senses, looking down at her blood-soaked hands. She tried to suppress the hatred in her heart, pretending to be cheerful, but her long nails had unknowingly dug deep into her flesh. It's nothing, mother. My nails are too long, I forgot to cut them. Kara Lance withdrew her hand, saying to Ivy Lance with a slightly guilty conscience. Having said that, she turned to Lucy Brown and said, why haven't you invited them in yet? It's windy outside, don't let them catch a cold. As she spoke, Helena Lance slowly entered, today wearing a Rui cloud pattern dress of sunset purple cloud pattern satin silk, the sleeves embroidered with scattered purple cloud patterns surrounding the hem, like a celestial being gliding through the clouds. Helena Lance was truly a great beauty, her graceful figure charming and captivating. Kara Lance smiled, watching the figure gradually approaching, a hint of hatred flashing in her eyes, as she smiled and walked towards Helena Lance. Following behind was fourth Prince Victor Royce, still with his familiar tall and handsome appearance. His attire was made of the finest azure ice silk, trimmed with white and embroidered with elegant bamboo patterns, and the ram's horn jade. Hairpin on his head further accentuated his noble air. Undeniably, Victor Royce was a handsome man, but his eyes revealed a heartless nature. In her past life, why hadn't she noticed this? She had mistakenly believed his affection for her to be so deep, only to be deceived and led astray by him. Moreover, these two arriving together suggested they had colluded beforehand. Kara Lance thought to herself, a mocking smile playing on her lips. In her past life, she had been truly blind, deceived by their glamorous exteriors, failing to detect the hidden ambitions beneath. Chapter 3, Marrying her for gain. After Ivy Lance and Kara Lance paid their respects to Victor Royce, Ivy Lance excused herself, claiming to have matters to attend to. As soon as Ivy Lance left, Helena Lance affectionately took Kara Lance's hand, her face full of concern, saying, Sister, you've been unconscious for 3 days. Every day has felt like a year for me. I wish it had been me who fell into the lake. If I hadn't insisted you come with me to admire the plum blossoms, this wouldn't have happened. It's all my fault. Looking at Helena Lance's self-reproaching and pitiful appearance, if she hadn't known the events of her past life, she would truly have been deceived, believing that Helena Lance genuinely cared for her sister. But now, everything from her past life reminded her that it was this seemingly pitiful woman before her who had ruined her family and home. Kara Lance smiled and said, Don't blame yourself, sister. It was my own carelessness, and I'm fine now. By the way, why did you two come together? Did you arrange to meet beforehand? As Kara Lance spoke, she feigned a suspicious glance at Victor Royce and Helena Lance. That probing and suspicious gaze made Victor Royce and Helena Lance feel uneasy, their expressions becoming slightly unnatural. In truth, Victor Royce had arrived at Lance Manor early, but he hadn't visited Kara Lance immediately. Instead, under the pretext of wanting to surprise Kara Lance, he went to the East Pavilion, Helena Lance's residence, to ask her about Kara Lance's preferences. Arriving at the East Pavilion, Helena Lance and Victor Royce became engrossed in each other, completely forgetting their initial pretext. Feigning innocence, Helena Lance said, Sister, you're such a tease. We just happened to meet at the entrance and decided to come here together. Despite her words, her hands nervously fiddled with the silk handkerchief she held. Victor Royce quickly added, Indeed, Kara. We simply met by chance. Don't misunderstand. He offered a strained smile. After observing their attempts to compose themselves, Kara Lance chuckled, covering her mouth with her hand. I was just joking. Look how frightened you both are, as if you've truly done something wrong." At her words, the composure Victor Royce and Helena Lance had regained instantly vanished, their faces paling. They both sensed a change in Kara Lance, yet couldn't quite place what she knew. "Kara, we already said it was a misunderstanding. Why continue the jest?" Victor Royce feigned seriousness, his tone stern, but his expression still betrayed unease. Such is the nature of clandestine affairs, a heart filled with disquiet. Kara Lance observed the charade, a cold laugh echoing within her. "All right, enough teasing. The table is laden with your favorite dishes. Why don't you try them?" Kara Lance offered a playful smile, as if the previous exchange had been mere jest. Victor Royce and Helena Lance finally breathed a sigh of relief. "Kara, how is your health? Are you fully recovered? Should I summon the imperial physician?" Victor Royce inquired, elegantly lifting his teacup for a sip. "I'm fine. There's no need for such fuss. I've completely recovered," Kara Lance replied softly, a gentle smile gracing her lips. Nauseated by their feigned concern, Kara Lance, no longer wishing to endure their company, quickly excused herself, feigning fatigue and promising to see them later. Victor Royce found her behavior peculiar. Kara Lance usually clung to him, protesting whenever he spoke of leaving. Yet today, she had dismissed him. A flicker of suspicion crossed his mind, but the sight of Helena Lance's alluring figure banished the thought. After their departure, Kara Lance instructed Autumn Snow to discreetly follow Victor Royce, then retired to her bedchamber. Though puzzled by her mistress's command, Autumn Snow, ever obedient, immediately set out to fulfill her task. Kara Lance vividly recalled Helena Lance's words from her past life. Victor Royce's marriage proposal was motivated by a treasure map and an imperial edict capable of altering the line of succession. She resolved to locate these items before devising a plan to vanquish Helena Lance and Victor Royce. Upon returning to her room, Helena Lance shed her pretense, sitting alone at her table and slamming her hand down upon it. "Kara Lance, consider yourself fortunate to have escaped this time. But mark my words, I will ensure your demise," she seethed. With her mask discarded, Helena Lance's usual elegance and fragility vanished, replaced by a contorted, venomous expression. Anyone witnessing her in this state would scarcely believe her to be the demure second miss of the general's estate. A noise from the window alerted Helena Lance to Victor Royce's surreptitious arrival. Composing herself, she adopted a fragile, willow-like demeanor, her voice a gentle murmur, always sneaking in through the window, "Aren't you afraid of being discovered?" Victor Royce, ignoring her pleasantry, moved behind her, encircling her waist. "If someone hadn't conveniently left the window unlatched, I wouldn't be able to sneak in, would I?" Helena Lance, blushing, lowered her head and embraced him, whispering, "Tell me, when will you break off your engagement with her and marry me?" Victor Royce, showing impatience at her repeated query, soothed her, "We haven't obtained what we need yet. It's not the right time. Don't you desire to be the mother of the realm?" Helena Lance, though displeased by his sweet words to the woman she loathed, suppressed her resentment at the thought of becoming empress. "Kara Lance, even if Victor speaks honeyed words to you, it's only for my position as empress," Helena Lance reassured herself, her mood lifting. Feigning a pout, she pressed, "Do you truly intend to marry her?" Her earlier anger dissipated, replaced by a rosy blush and a coquettish air that captivated Victor Royce. Victor Royce, suppressing his desire, declared, "Even if I marry her, it's purely for strategic gain, for our future. She can't compare to you. You are the most important person in my heart." With that, Victor Royce swept Helena Lance into his arms and carried her towards the bed. "Put me down. Put me down." Helena Lance protested, half-heartedly struggling. Victor Royce disregarded her protests, recognizing her attempts to entice him. He acknowledged her skill in captivating him, igniting a burning desire within him. He reflected on his deep affection for her, an affection that defied his father's wishes and drove him to their clandestine meetings. Simultaneously, his affection for Helena Lance served a purpose, to use her to probe Kara Lance and uncover the two missing objects. Dismissing these thoughts, the room was soon filled with passion. Meanwhile, autumn snow returned through the side entrance of the eastern courtyard. "Where has the fourth prince gone?" Kara Lance inquired upon autumn snow's return. "My lady, the fourth prince, it seems he went to the eastern courtyard, but perhaps he was just passing through," autumn snow hesitantly replied. She couldn't fathom that the fourth prince would secretly follow second Miss Helena Lance and sneak into the eastern courtyard. Could there be a secret affair between them? This thought filled her with worry for Kara Lance. One was the first Miss's fiancée, the other her sister. If this were true, what would become of Kara Lance? Kara Lance, unsurprised by the answer, simply acknowledged it and dismissed Autumn Snow. Autumn Snow, observing Kara Lance's reaction, felt a pang of anxiety but remained silent. If my guess is right, then Victor Royce and Helena Lance must be having a secret affair. I must use this to break off the engagement with Victor Royce, but not now. I want to expose the true faces of Helena Lance and Emily Lincoln, so Elliot Lance can see them clearly. Also, Helena Lance mentioned in my past life that her mother, Ivy Lance, usurped Emily Sophia Lincoln's rightful place. I must investigate this thoroughly. It could be the key to changing my and my mother's standing in this household. Helena Lance also said that Victor Royce met her first. But if, as she claims, Victor Royce was drawn by the sound of a zither, whose music was it that truly attracted him? After all, I was there too. Helena Lance and I were discussing zither techniques in the Plum Blossom Garden, each playing a rendition of Phoenix Seeking Phoenix Melody. Just after I finished, Mother's maid came to fetch me, saying Ivy Lance needed me. If Helena Lance met Victor Royce first, it must have been then. I didn't see him again until the banquet. But the main hall is some distance from the Plum Blossom Garden, it takes time to walk between them. Perhaps Victor Royce was drawn by my playing, not Helena Lance's. If that's true, does Victor Royce know Helena Lance is deceiving him? Kara Lance slowly curved her lips, eager to witness their reactions when the truth is revealed. Chapter 4, Poison Medicine. The next day, Kara Lance rose early to pay her respects to Ivy Lance. At the door, she saw Ivy Lance about to drink a bowl of medicinal broth. Ivy Lance's health had been poor for years, relying on medicine to sustain her. Kara Lance remembered Helena Lance saying in her past life that Ivy Lance hadn't died of illness, but had been slowly poisoned by her and Sophia Lincoln. If that were true, this bowl of medicine could very well be poisoned. With this thought, Kara Lance called out urgently, "Mother." Hearing her daughter's voice, Ivy Lance paused, the medicine bowl lowered slightly. Kara Lance hurried to Ivy Lance's side and sat down, dismissing all the maids but Mama Marie, Ivy Lance's personal maid. "Kara, your health has just recovered, why are you here so early?" Ivy Lance asked, holding her daughter's hand with a loving expression. Kara Lance nestled her head against Ivy Lance, acting coquettishly, "I missed you, Mother, so I came." Warmed by Kara Lance's words, Ivy Lance patted her back indulgently, "Silly child." After basking in her mother's affection, Kara Lance sat up and said seriously, "Mother, you mustn't drink this medicine." Ivy Lance looked at Kara Lance in confusion, "Why?" Kara Lance didn't answer, but took out a prepared silver needle, dipped it into the medicine, and withdrew it. The part that touched the liquid had darkened. Ivy Lance and Mama Marie gasped in horror. "I've never wronged anyone. Who would want to harm me?" Ivy Lance was terrified, unable to fathom who would want to poison her. Marie, her mother, retorted, indignant and bewildered, "My lady is always kind and generous to everyone. Who would harbor such dark intentions to harm her?" Ivy Lance, within the manor's walls, remained unassuming, appearing only when her role as the official wife demanded it. Her lenient treatment of the servants earned her widespread respect within the household. Cara Lance, taking her mother's hand, spoke earnestly, "Mother, your heart is pure, you wouldn't conceive of such devious schemes. Lance manner breeds gossip and intrigue. Even if you harm no one, there will always be those who seek to harm you. But rest assured, I will find the culprit. First, however, I must ask you something. Can you tell me?" Ivy Lance noticed a change in her daughter, Cara Lance, since her recovery. The childish innocence had faded, replaced by a cool intellect. Hearing Cara's request, she calmly replied, "What is it?" "If I know, I will tell you." "Mother, what were the circumstances of your first meeting with father?" Cara Lance feigned curiosity. She couldn't reveal her past life's knowledge of Helena Lance's account of Emily Lincoln meeting their father first, lest Ivy Lance think her fever had addled her mind. Ivy Lance's eyes dimmed at her daughter's question. It was a painful memory, but if her daughter wished to hear it, she would tell her. She was 16. Elliot Lance's parents visited the Lynn residence, ostensibly as guests, but the true purpose was to arrange a meeting between Elliot and herself. A betrothal had been arranged between their families since childhood, and this meeting was for them to assess each other and discuss the 6 betrothal rites. She and Emily Lincoln, her friend, were staying at the Lynn residence at the time, enjoying each other's company. In a playful moment, they decided to each perform a dance at the banquet. Fearing their parents' disapproval, they wore veils. At the banquet for Elliot Lance's family, she and Emily Lincoln danced. The guests, unaware of their identities, mistook them for hired dancers. The moment she saw Elliot Lance, she was captivated by his noble bearing. It was love at first sight. She felt his gaze fixed on her as well. After the dance, they changed clothes. She realized she had lost her embroidered handkerchief and searched for it everywhere. She found it with Emily Lincoln, who claimed a man had found it and, thinking it was hers, had given it to her. When her parents summoned her to meet Elliot Lance, she found him gazing dreamily at Emily Lincoln. She knew then that this marriage was not destined for happiness. After their marriage, Elliot Lance remained distant. Within 6 months, he took Emily Lincoln as a concubine. Though heartbroken, she accepted her fate. Elliot Lance doted on Emily Lincoln. Years passed, and though he later took Charlotte Langston as another concubine, his affections remained unchanged. Cara Lance listened intently to Ivy Lance's story, searching for clues within her words. If Sophia Lincoln was indeed the villain, then her father had mistaken his true love all those years ago. The woman he was captivated by was her mother. The handkerchief had caused the misunderstanding. It turns out both mother and daughter were caught in a web of deceit, their rightful happiness stolen by those who audaciously claimed it as their own. What a pair of selfishly benevolent women. Blinded in the past life, I shall expose your true faces in this one. After a moment of contemplation, Cara Lance inquired, "Mother, do you still have that silk handkerchief from all those years ago?" Ivy Lance, still lost in reverie, replied, "Wait a moment, child." With that, she rose and approached the window, retrieving a box from a drawer. After settling back down, Ivy Lance slowly opened it. "This is the very handkerchief. I haven't touched it since that day." She gently caressed the silk, a memento of her first and only stirring of the heart, yet also a witness to a loveless union. A bittersweet memory she clung to, yet couldn't bear to hold. It was a blush-pink silk handkerchief, embroidered with plum blossoms. The delicate buds, lifelike and vibrant, were rendered with exquisite needlework beyond the skill of ordinary hands. Tracing the embroidery with her fingers, Cara Lance asked, "Mother, might I have this handkerchief?" Gazing at her daughter with affection, Ivy Lance softly replied, "If you like it, keep it." "Thank you, Mother." "Oh, and about that medicine, you shouldn't take it anymore. I'll find a trustworthy physician to re-evaluate your condition." After conversing with Ivy Lance a while longer, Cara Lance departed the West Wing. She prepared to leave the estate, seeking Leonard Gray, the most skilled physician in the capital, to examine Ivy Lance. Possessing some knowledge of poisons herself, Cara Lance recognized that her mother's ailment was no ordinary affliction. Currently, she knew only Leonard Gray possessed the expertise to address it. Unexpectedly, she encountered Vivian Langston, 5 months pregnant. Having conceived after 2 years in the household, Vivian Langston cherished this child deeply. Wishing to avoid a confrontation, Cara Lance attempted to detour around her. However, Vivian Langston was not inclined to let her pass so easily. "Where are you headed, eldest miss?" Vivian Langston's melodious voice reached Cara Lance's ears. Resigned to the inevitable encounter, she halted, turned, and addressed Vivian Langston with a forced smile. "Concubine, you seem to have much leisure. However, I have pressing matters that require me to leave the estate. Please excuse me." With that, Cara Lance attempted to depart once more. "Oh dear, I seem to have dropped my handkerchief. Would you be so kind as to retrieve it for me, eldest miss?" Vivian Langston persisted. But Cara Lance was no longer the timid, easily intimidated girl of the past. Fixing Vivian Langston with a cold stare, she retorted, "Concubine, though with child, you seem to have forgotten your place. I am the legitimate daughter of Lance Manor. Out of respect for the child you carry, I have excused your lack of formality. Yet you presume to ask me to retrieve your handkerchief. Do you believe that pregnancy elevates you above the established hierarchy?" With her icy words delivered, Cara Lance turned and departed, leaving Vivian Langston stunned. Vivian Langston watched Cara Lance's retreating figure, stamping her foot in frustration. Were it not for her concern for the child she carried, she would have reacted more forcefully. She had tormented Cara Lance relentlessly in the past, met only with meek acquiescence. She hadn't expected to be countered with the rigid constraints of social rank. Legitimate daughter or not, without favor, she held no true power. Cara Lance, unyielding, departed the estate, resolved against further leniency and determined to endure no more mistreatment. Yet, she recalled from her past life around this time, Vivian Langston mistakenly consumed safflower, tragically losing her 5-month-old child. The subsequent discovery of safflower in Ivy Lance's quarters further exacerbated their precarious position within the household. With no male heir yet born to either her mother or Sophia Lincoln, Vivian Langston's hard-won pregnancy with a son ended in devastating loss, intensifying Elliot Lance's resentment towards her mother, mitigated only by the Lynn family's influence. Resolved, she would seize this opportunity to strike a decisive blow against her mother's adversary, whom she firmly believed to be Sophia Lincoln. Chapter 5, A Royal Encounter. Preferring tranquility, Leonard Gray resided not within the bustling capital but at the serene Lingdu Mountain Retreat, west of the city. After a half-hour journey from the capital, Cara Lance and autumn snow reached the slopes of Lingdu Mountain Retreat, a vast snow-covered expanse offering panoramic views of the city below. The world, draped in pristine white, seemed purified by the snow's embrace. Cara Lance, immersed in this immaculate moment, let the chill wind sharpen her senses. Within this boundless purity, her breath flowed freely, inspiring her to perform the Scarlet Breeze Ballet, a dance reserved for the man she loved. In her past life, it was Victor Royce; in this life, it was for herself. Now, her focus was self-preservation and her mother's safety. This dance was a tribute to her resilience, to the vast world, and to the gift of a second chance. Imbued with newfound resolve, Cara Lance danced with unprecedented grace, captivating autumn snow. Unbeknownst to them, a man observed from the shadows, mesmerized by the ethereal performance. His contemplation was interrupted by a voice. "Ninth brother, what holds your gaze?" a man inquired. The ninth brother, engrossed in the dance, remained silent. Undeterred, the other man followed his gaze, beholding a graceful figure amidst the snow, her red attire and raven hair striking a vibrant contrast against the white landscape. He was captivated, never before having encountered a woman who stirred such profound emotions. The ninth brother took the jade flute from his companion and brought it to his lips, filling the air with its melodious notes. The flute's enchanting melody resonated with Cara Lance, a testament to a kindred spirit. Inspired, her dance grew even more fluid and expressive. As the dance concluded, Cara Lance and Autumn Snow resumed their ascent. "My lady, your dance was breathtaking," Autumn Snow exclaimed, following close behind. Cara Lance responded with a gentle smile. Not long after, they arrived at the gates of Grey Manor. Cara Lance presented the invitation, and after a moment, a servant led them inside. Within Grey Manor, everything was simple, devoid of excessive ornamentation and carvings. The staff was minimal, reflecting Leonard Grey's austere nature. Approaching a small pond, they encountered two men walking towards them. Drawing closer, Cara Lance was startled. The man on the left wore magnificent brocade robes, his sharply defined face and deep-set eyes held an air of arrogance and coldness, both domineering and alluring. This was undoubtedly the ninth prince, Tristan Royce, who had been falsely accused of impropriety with her when she was framed by Victor Royce and Helena Lance. Seeing Tristan Royce, Cara Lance instantly recalled the humiliating exposure from her past life, a sharp, complex pain piercing her heart. Yet, having no formal acquaintance with the ninth prince, she suppressed her emotions. Beside him stood the 14th prince, Adrian Royce, clad in white robes, a jade hairpin adorning his hair, accentuating the pristine purity of his attire. Adrian Royce, known for his unassuming and compassionate nature, had chosen a life of tranquil seclusion while his brothers fiercely vied for the throne. Though not born of the same mother, Tristan Royce and Adrian Royce shared a deep bond. Cara Lance discreetly observed the two, her gaze lingering on a jade flute hanging at Adrian Royce's hip. Adrian Royce, recognizing the familiar figure, was also taken aback. He had intended to seek out this young woman, and now, unexpectedly, she was here. Her visit to Leonard Grey would simplify his quest to discover her lineage. Tristan Royce was also momentarily stunned. He couldn't deny her captivating presence, though his heart already belonged to another. Yet, a strange sense of familiarity washed over him upon seeing her. Cara Lance and Autumn Snow quietly stepped aside, yielding the path to the princes. Entering the hall, Cara Lance bowed slightly to Leonard Grey, offering the customary greeting, "Blessings upon you, Leonard Grey." Leonard Grey, observing the decorous young woman before him, felt a surge of goodwill. "Whose daughter are you?" he inquired. "And what brings you to seek me out?" As Leonard Grey finished speaking, Cara Lance abruptly knelt. "I have heard of your renowned medical skill, esteemed Leonard Grey," Cara Lance pleaded, her forehead touching the floor. "I beseech you to save my mother's life." She adopted this approach knowing Leonard Grey's noble character and compassion for the common folk. He exclusively treated ordinary citizens, refusing to attend to the wealthy or court officials, regardless of their offered riches. Witnessing Cara Lance's supplication, Leonard Grey hastened to help her rise. "There is no need for such formality, young lady," he said. "Healing the sick is a physician's duty. However, judging by your attire, you are clearly not of common birth." "I am Cara Lance, eldest daughter of Lance Manor," she revealed. "My mother's health has always been frail, requiring constant medication. Recently, we discovered poison in her medicine, a poison only you, Leonard Grey, can counteract. I implore you to save her." "Young lady, you should know I do not treat members of the court," Leonard Grey stated, his tone firm. "I fear you will be disappointed." Cara Lance, anticipating the difficulty in securing Leonard Grey's services, was about to press further when she heard approaching footsteps. It was Tristan Royce and Adrian Royce, whom they had encountered earlier. "Esteemed patriarch, I can vouch for this young lady's character. I implore you to make an exception and treat her mother." Adrian Royce spoke, approaching Leonard Grey and gently massaging his shoulders. "Easy for you to say. Matters of principle allow no exceptions, 14th Prince. Do not put me in a difficult position." Leonard Grey was surprised by Adrian Royce's intervention on Cara Lance's behalf. Though he treated Adrian Royce like a son, he could not break his rules. "Esteemed patriarch, would you perhaps be interested in my painting, Swallows in the Misty Rain?" Adrian Royce stopped the massage, fixing Leonard Gray with a peculiar look. "Well, you rascal. Very well. For the sake of that painting, I will make an exception this once." Leonard Gray conceded. He had long coveted Adrian Royce's Swallows in the Misty Rain, requesting it numerous times to no avail. He hadn't expected the young prince to offer it for this woman. "Thank you, esteemed patriarch." Cara Lance expressed her gratitude upon hearing Leonard Gray agree to examine Ivy Lance. Leonard Gray gave a wry smile. "No need to thank me. If you wish to thank someone, thank His 14th Highness." Cara Lance approached Adrian Royce and bowed slightly. "Thank you, 14th Prince. I will certainly repay this kindness in the future." Cara Lance was unaware that this kindness would only accumulate, becoming a debt she could never repay. It was a small matter. "Please, don't concern yourself," Adrian Royce replied, his gaze lingering on the refined young woman before him. Standing nearby, Tristan Royce observed the scene impassively, thinking, a small matter. That painting is his most treasured possession, rarely shown to anyone. Now he gives it to the patriarch for her sake. This small matter carries significant weight. However, Tristan Royce sensed that this woman was not simple. No one had mentioned their princely identities, yet she had deduced them. Such keen observation was not something an ordinary person possessed. Chapter 6, The Traitor returning to the manor, Cara Lance went to Ivy Lance's courtyard. They would depart for Lingdu Mountain retreat the following day to consult with Patriarch Gray. Patriarch Gray's reputation was widespread. Many would recognize him. Bringing him to the manor would undoubtedly alert their enemies. Though Ivy Lance was puzzled by how her daughter had persuaded Patriarch Gray to examine her, she didn't press the matter. Early the next morning, under the pretense of visiting a temple for blessings and incense offerings, Ivy Lance, accompanied by Mama Marie and Cara Lance, boarded a carriage and set off for Lingdu Mountain retreat. Ivy Lance and Cara Lance brought only their closest servants. This matter was of utmost importance, the fewer people who knew, the better. At the Gray estate, Patriarch Gray examined Ivy Lance's pulse and reviewed the herbal remedies Cara Lance had brought. Shaking his head, he said, "How utterly cruel." Fortunately, it was discovered early. Upon hearing this, Cara Lance inquired, "Esteemed patriarch, what poison has my mother been afflicted with?" Elder Gray stroked his silver-white beard and declared, "The prescription itself is sound, but someone deliberately increased the dosage of certain ingredients. The additions were subtle, making detection difficult for a typical physician. This concoction induces gradual lethargy and fatigue, ultimately leading to death in slumber." A chill ran down Ivy Lance's spine, her face draining of color. Her persistent illness and constant fatigue suddenly made terrible sense. "What can be done?" Cara Lance inquired urgently. "I shall prescribe a remedy. 3 months of diligent adherence will restore your health. However, utmost care must be taken in selecting a trustworthy individual to prepare the medicine," Elder Gray advised pointedly, picking up his brush and beginning to write. "My deepest gratitude, Elder Gray. Your intervention has saved my life. Words cannot express my thanks. Please accept this small token of my appreciation," Ivy Lance said, offering an exquisite brocade box filled with precious jewels and treasures, presented to her by Mama Marie. Elder Gray gently pushed the box back. "No thanks are necessary. My services have already been compensated. If you truly wish to show gratitude, perhaps consider contributing medicinal herbs to my dispensary for the benefit of the common people. In that case, I shall undertake the responsibility of supplying your dispensary with all its medicinal needs. Consider it a small act of charity for my dear daughter," Ivy Lance replied, signaling Mama Marie to retrieve the brocade box. Elder Gray nodded, indicating there was no need for further formality. He recognized Ivy Lance's benevolent nature and her unassuming presence within the household. Bidding farewell to Elder Grey, Ivy Lance and Cara Lance returned to Lance Manor. Mama Marie dismissed the other maids and served Ivy Lance and Cara Lance each a cup of tea. "Mother, the culprit must be someone within our own courtyard. It seems a treacherous insider has infiltrated our ranks," Cara Lance mused, her mind racing as they walked. "Only someone with regular access could tamper with Ivy Lance's medicine." "Your words ring true. I've treated them all well. Why would anyone repay kindness with such malice?" Ivy Lance lamented, the betrayal stinging deeply. "We must uncover this individual swiftly. The consequences of inaction could be dire," Cara Lance declared, suspecting a connection to the safflower incident that had harmed Ivy Lance and endangered Vivian Langston's unborn child in her past life. Together, Cara Lance, Ivy Lance, and Mama Marie began to analyze each maid within the courtyard. Ivy Lance preferred a smaller staff, so the number of maids was limited: Violet Milner, Susanna, Tracy Lawrence, May Brooke, Rose Channing, Daisy Green, and of course, the ever-faithful Mama Marie. Violet Milner was born within the estate, her parents having served the Chancellor's household for nearly 2 decades. Her mother was the head cook, and her father worked in the accounting office. Violet Milner's embroidery skills had caught Ivy Lance's attention, leading to her appointment as a seamstress. Susanna, Tracy Lawrence, and May Brooke were all indentured servants, with no remaining family ties. Rose Channing and Daisy Green were bound by term contracts, their service to the manor lasting 5 years before they could regain their freedom and marry. Rose Channing, a lively young woman, had parents who farmed in the countryside. Driven by hardship, she had sought employment at Lance Manor to support her family, and was now in her 4th year of service. Daisy Green resided with her mother and an idle brother. Due to her brother's lack of employment and her mother's frailty, Daisy wished to provide care at home. However, her brother compelled her into service as a maid at Lance Manor. Quiet and reserved, she has now served for 3 years. Mama Marie, dispatch a trusted individual to observe these maids and identify any suspicious behavior, Cara Lance instructed after hearing Mama Marie's report. Certainly, eldest miss, Mama Marie respectfully replied, noting the distinct change in Cara Lance since her recovery, a newfound authority and a chilling glint in her eyes. Cara Lance nodded, exchanged pleasantries with Ivy Lance, and returned to her own quarters. Mama Marie, ever efficient, completed a thorough investigation of the maids within a few days. Susanna, Tracy Lawrence, Rose Channing, and Daisy Green exhibit no unusual activity, diligently performing their duties. Violet Milner, similarly, dedicates her days to sewing and embroidery, returning home each evening to dine with her family. Only May Brooke, on a particular evening, was observed meeting with an unfamiliar man, Mama Marie reported, emphasizing her observation of May Brooke. Upon hearing this, Cara Lance deduced that May Brooke was the prime suspect. In that case, maintain surveillance on May Brooke. For the others, address their individual hardships to ensure their devoted service and prevent any treacherous betrayal, Cara Lance declared with the unwavering authority of a matriarch, startling both Ivy Lance and Mama Marie. Ivy Lance marveled at her daughter's newfound astuteness. Reassured by this transformation, Ivy Lance recognized the importance of guiding Cara towards becoming a capable mistress of the household, especially given her impending marriage to the 4th prince. With her own health improving and Cara's maturity, the time for such instruction had arrived. Despite Elliot Lance's lack of affection, Ivy Lance had long held the reins of household management, possessing considerable experience and expertise. Chapter 7 Poisoned birds nest beneath a clear sky, a blanket of snow covered the land, yet the plum blossoms in the courtyard bloomed defiantly. As was her custom, Cara Lance rose early and joined Ivy Lance for breakfast in her chambers. Since Ivy Lance's recovery, Cara Lance devoted her free time to her mother's company. With the cessation of the poison tonic and the commencement of Leonard Gray's prescribed remedies, Ivy Lance's health steadily improved, her complexion regaining its vibrancy. Arriving at Ivy Lance's chambers, Cara Lance overheard her mother's voice, tinged with worry and distress. "I hear the master caught a chill today. I wonder if his condition has improved." "Madam, rest assured. The master possesses robust health and is undoubtedly recovering. You needn't fret," Mama Marie offered comfort. "I hope so," Ivy Lance murmured softly. Overhearing this exchange, Cara Lance felt a pang of heartache and indignation on her mother's behalf. Throughout the years, Elliot Lance had shown little regard for his wife and daughter, rarely setting foot in the West Wing beyond obligatory visits. He had utterly failed to fulfill his paternal role, leaving Cara Lance with no sense of fatherly love. Yet, Mother always worried for him. For years, she managed all of Lance Manor, diligently and tirelessly, despite many coveting her position as the official wife and the household authority. But none of that compared to a single word of concern or inquiry from Elliot Lance. Cara Lance, dismissing her thoughts, stepped inside. Seeing her daughter, Ivy Lance composed herself and smiled. "Why are you here so early? It's so cold, why didn't you sleep in longer?" She took Cara Lance's hand affectionately, gently rubbing it. Mama Marie stood beside them, smiling kindly. Ivy Lance was rarely cheerful. If not for the eldest miss, it was hard to imagine how she could endure life at Lance Manor. Especially lately, the eldest miss had become much more understanding and attentive to her mother, bringing a few more smiles to Ivy Lance's face. "Eldest miss arrived so early, you must not have eaten yet." "I'll instruct the servants to prepare breakfast," Mama Marie said respectfully. Ivy Lance nodded, pulling Cara Lance down to sit on the settee and chat with her. As they talked, Vivian Langston's maid, Anne Hathaway, entered. "Greetings, madam, eldest Mississippi master requests your presence in the North Wing." Ivy Lance acknowledged with a sound, and Anne Hathaway withdrew. After Anne Hathaway left, Ivy Lance turned to Cara Lance. "I'm going to the North Wing. Would you like to wait here? You could stay for lunch." "Mother, I'll go with you. I have nothing else to do." Cara Lance felt uneasy letting Ivy Lance go to the North Wing alone. Sophia Lincoln and Vivian Langston were always finding ways to make her mother suffer. In her past life, she was too weak to protect her mother. In this life, she would never let her mother suffer again, not even a little. Ivy Lance's lips curved slightly. She led Cara Lance out of the room and towards the North Wing. The North Wing, situated on the north side of Lance Manor, was not far from the West Wing, and they arrived shortly. The maid guarding the door bowed and, after greetings, led them into Vivian Langston's bedchamber. Vivian Langston lay in bed, moaning in pain, while Elliot Lance sat beside her, holding her hand and comforting her. Elliot Lance, though 35 or 36, still possessed a striking presence. His maturity, etched in the lines around his eyes, added to his allure. No wonder Ivy Lance, despite being neglected, remained devoted to him. "Husband, what's wrong with my younger sister?" Ivy Lance inquired softly after curtsying. Cara Lance addressed Elliot Lance as "father" and stepped aside, a look of concern on her face. But in the depths of her eyes, a cold glint flashed. As she suspected, Vivian Langston was up to her tricks again, making things difficult for her mother. But the fragrance in the room, there was something strange about it. Elliot Lance merely grunted, ignoring Cara Lance. She didn't mind. In her past life, she valued so-called familial affection too much and was hurt by his attitude. This time, it would be different, even if he was her father. She believed that in her past life, he wasn't entirely unaware of Sophia Lincoln secretly poisoning her mother. He simply turned a blind eye, allowing Sophia Lincoln to act as she pleased. "You have the nerve to ask." The bird's nest in the storehouse was laced with poison. "Vivian's stomach has been aching ever since she ate it," Elliot Lance said coldly to Ivy Lance. Upon hearing this, Ivy Lance's heart lurched, and she hastily explained, "How could that be? The quality of the bird's nest I provide has always been strictly inspected. There's no way there could be a problem. Elliot Lance ignored Ivy Lance's explanation and roared, then why did Vivian experience stomach pains after consuming the bird's nest? The physician also said it was due to poisoned bird's nest. Startled by Elliot Lance's outburst, Ivy Lance involuntarily stepped back. Composing herself, she said, "My lord, I can guarantee there's absolutely no problem with the bird's nest. If you don't believe me, you can send someone to the storehouse to inspect it." Ivy Lance gazed intently at Elliot Lance, a flicker of hope in her eyes that he might trust her. But her hopes were never realized, and this time was no different. "I've already sent someone to inspect it. There's no problem with the bird's nest. The question is, all the other birds' nests are fine, only the one Vivian consumed had a problem. What was your intention?" Elliot Lance thundered. Vivian Langston continued to moan, her voice conveying both agony and a touch of vulnerability, further fueling Elliot Lance's rage towards Ivy Lance. Kara Lance coldly observed the scene, noting Elliot Lance's callousness towards Ivy Lance and his unwavering protectiveness of Vivian Langston. Vivian Langston feigned intense pain, but her eyes darted towards Ivy Lance and Kara Lance, a glint of cunning and triumph in their depths. This did not escape Kara Lance's notice. Indeed, she believed Vivian Langston was undoubtedly feigning illness. If someone was determined to cause trouble, they shouldn't blame others for retaliating. "Where is the physician who examined the concubine?" Kara Lance inquired. A middle-aged man carrying a medicine chest emerged from a corner of the room. "Reporting to eldest miss, I am the one who examined Vivian Langston." Kara Lance lowered her gaze to him and asked, "May I ask, doctor, what poison was in the bird's nest?" "This." Reporting to eldest miss, the bird's nest Vivian Langston consumed contained traces of oleander. Upon hearing this, Kara Lance turned her attention away from the physician and approached Elliot Lance. With a slight bow, she said, "Father, I wish to inquire if there is any remaining bird's nest that the concubine consumed. I have recently been studying some medical principles under Leonard Gray's tutelage, and I wonder if I might examine it." Indeed, after diagnosing and treating Ivy Lance's illness, Kara Lance had discreetly become Leonard Gray's apprentice, studying medical arts. Leonard Gray was also quite fond of Kara Lance. Seeing her genuine aptitude for medicine, he accepted her as his disciple. Of course, another crucial factor was Adrian Royce, though Kara Lance remained unaware of this. Elliot Lance was inwardly astonished. Leonard Gray, a physician of renowned skill, was known for his aloofness and rarely accepted apprentices, let alone someone from the Prime Minister's estate. How had Kara Lance managed to persuade Leonard Gray to make an exception for her? This prompted him to scrutinize Kara Lance more closely. He observed her composure, her resoluteness, devoid of arrogance or flattery, a stark contrast to the timid and shy Kara Lance of the past. "It's on the table." Elliot Lance's tone softened slightly, losing some of its anger. Hearing that Kara Lance now possessed medical knowledge and wished to examine the bird's nest, Vivian Langston felt a pang of guilt and hastily said, "The evidence is clear. Do you still intend to deny it?" Kara Lance remained unyielding. Even when accusing someone, shouldn't it be done convincingly? Is it simply a matter of whatever you say goes? With that, she ignored Vivian Langston and proceeded to the nearby table. She took a silver needle and inserted it into the bird's nest, but even after a considerable time, the needle showed no reaction. Kara Lance sneered inwardly. These people, seeing how easily bullied she and her mother were, couldn't even be bothered to put on a convincing performance. Turning, Kara Lance addressed the physician, "I may be unskilled, but I wish to inquire, learned physician, does silver react and change color upon contact with oleander?" Unease gripped the physician. He had merely accepted a bribe from Vivian Langston to bear false witness, assuming it a trivial matter. He hadn't anticipated the young mistress's medical knowledge. Wiping his brow, he stammered, "Indeed, young mistress, it does." Then explain why the silver needle I placed in Vivian Langston's consumed bird's nest showed no reaction whatsoever, Cara Lance pressed. The young mistress, having received instruction from Leonard Gray, possesses superior medical skill. This humble physician is no match. Perhaps my diagnosis was mistaken. He had only sought extra coin, never intending to wade into such murky waters. Now exposed, his only recourse was to feign incompetence. Vivian Langston, aghast at Physician Hayes's swift collapse under Cara Lance's questioning, scrambled for a solution. This quack. He has caused me such distress, leading me to misunderstand my sister. My lord. She turned an innocent gaze towards Elliot Lance. Chapter 8, The Concubine's Punishment. Physician Hayes recoiled under Cara Lance's piercing stare, unlike any he had encountered. Falling to his knees, he pleaded, "Mercy, young mistress. Blinded by greed, I accepted a gold bar from Vivian Langston to lie." Vivian Langston, hearing this, shrieked, abandoning all decorum, "Physician Hayes, what are you saying?" Ignoring Vivian Langston, Physician Hayes produced a gold bar from his sleeve. "Vivian Langston, I was foolish and acted wrongly. This gold is yours." With that, he fled. Elliot Lance, though inwardly irritated by Vivian Langston's scheming, still inclined to defend her. He stammered awkwardly, "If it was a misunderstanding, then my lady wife, please return to your quarters." Vivian Langston, seizing the opportunity, added, "My sister has been wrongly accused, and I am truly remorseful. I shall offer my apologies another day." She sought only to bury the matter, confident in Elliot Lance's continued favor. Ivy Lance, witnessing Elliot Lance's predictable bias towards his concubine, felt a familiar pang of despair, despite anticipating his reaction. Cara Lance, however, refused to let Vivian Langston escape so easily. She had long ignored the injustices her mother endured, but no longer. "Father," Cara Lance addressed Elliot Lance, her eyes brimming with feigned distress, "I must ask, has Lance Manor abandoned all propriety?" Thus questioned by her, Elliot Lance knew Cara Lance wouldn't let the matter slide easily today, but unable to avoid it, he unnaturally replied, "Naturally." This. Elliot Lance was momentarily speechless. Falsely accusing the mistress of the house, according to the rules, warrants a beating to death. Moreover, Mother holds a first-rank imperial decree, if this matter were to escalate. Cara Lance's tears receded, her demeanor shifting from one of utter grievance to a much calmer composure. Elliot Lance and Vivian Langston opened their mouths to speak, but Cara Lance cut them off. However, considering Vivian Langston's pregnancy, and knowing Mother's benevolent and forgiving nature, perhaps we can forgive her. Let the concubine kneel before Mother, kowtow 3 times, and pour tea as an apology. Would that suffice? Elliot Lance, relieved, realized that with Cara Lance invoking the estate's rules and Ivy Lance's imperial decree, he couldn't simply brush the matter aside. He turned to Vivian Langston, "Vivian, kowtow 3 times to the madam and pour her tea in apology." Vivian Langston, accustomed to arrogance and lording over Ivy Lance, felt immense resentment at the prospect of kowtowing and serving tea. "My lord," she protested. Elliot Lance ignored her. Vivian Langston, seeing this, reluctantly climbed down from the bed, performed 3 perfunctory kowtows to Ivy Lance, and offered tea with both hands, saying, "I was wrong today, sister. I apologize for your magnanimity in overlooking my transgression. Rise. You must have been momentarily confused." Ivy Lance accepted the tea but didn't drink it, placing it aside. She looked at Elliot Lance and said, "If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." Elliot Lance, still ill at ease, gave a brief acknowledgement and avoided her gaze. Once Ivy Lance and Cara Lance were gone, Vivian Langston immediately began to whine to Elliot Lance, "My lord, I was truly wrong today." Elliot Lance, disgusted by Vivian Langston's lack of remorse, said impatiently, "You brought this upon yourself. Kowtowing and pouring tea was already lenient. I have matters to attend to." Focus on your pregnancy and avoid further trouble. With that, Elliot Lance flung his sleeve and departed, leaving Vivian Langston stamping her feet in frustration. Sophia Lincoln and Helena Lance, upon hearing the news from the North Wing, were stunned into disbelief. They had expected Ivy Lance to be severely punished. What had transpired to cause Elliot Lance, usually indifferent to Ivy Lance's feelings, to punish Vivian Langston instead? Mother, perhaps they were merely lucky this time, escaping this calamity. Helena Lance said to Sophia Lincoln with a smile, utterly disbelieving that Ivy Lance and Cara Lance possessed the ability to turn the tables. Sophia Lincoln nodded in agreement, equally skeptical that the usually meek Ivy Lance and timid Cara Lance could wield such influence. She inwardly cursed Vivian Langston's stupidity for failing at such a simple task. That night, all was still, the moon hung high like a polished mirror, its silver light bathing the earth and illuminating Cara Lance's chamber. Cara Lance dismissed autumn snow for the night, settling by the window alone with a medical text. Thanks to Leonard Gray's diligent instruction, her medical knowledge had greatly improved in recent days. Yet, to truly protect those she cared for, she knew she must strengthen herself in all aspects, diligently practicing and studying without respite. Absorbed in her studies, Cara Lance was startled by a sudden crash. The door to her lady's chamber burst open, slammed shut by a black-clad figure. Cara Lance gasped, about to cry out, when the intruder lunged, a cold hand clamping around her throat. "Silence, or I'll kill you," a low, magnetic voice growled. Cara Lance held her tongue, struggling to remain calm, her mind racing. This man, breaking into Lance Manor in the dead of night, must have been discovered and fled into her chamber in panic. If she could aid his escape, he would surely spare her life. The reason for his intrusion mattered little to her. As long as her mother and she remained unharmed, she cared nothing for possessions or other people. Having assessed the situation, Cara Lance whispered, "Release me, and I'll help you escape Lance Manor." As she spoke, the intruder forced a pill into her mouth. Cara Lance swallowed it involuntarily. "What did you give me?" Cara Lance demanded, eyes wide, voice rising, shocked by his treachery. "Behave yourself, and play no tricks. It's poison. Without the antidote within 7 days, you'll itch unbearably until you die." Cara Lance gagged, trying to vomit the pill, but it was too late. A commotion erupted outside. Vivian Langston and her entourage were approaching. "Madam, I saw an assassin heading towards the West Wing. For your safety and the eldest miss, we should search the area," Vivian Langston declared. Servants shouted, chasing after the supposed assassin. Vivian Langston, seeing someone running towards the West Wing, seized the opportunity to lead a group of servants there, determined to ruin Cara Lance's reputation. "Is that so?" "I haven't seen any assassin," Ivy Lance replied, her voice tinged with weariness. "I also saw an assassin enter Madam's courtyard." "Madam, look." A young maid's voice piped up from the crowd. "Very well, for safety's sake, Mama Marie, go to the young Mrs. room and see how she is." Cara Lance was her life, her worry was palpable. Vivian Langston, unwilling to let Mama Marie go alone, interjected, "If the assassin poses a threat to the eldest miss, Mama Marie might be overwhelmed. It's best we all go to assist her." Unable to refuse, Ivy Lance accompanied Vivian Langston towards Cara Lance's lady's chamber. Ivy Lance knocked on Cara Lance's door. "Cara, are you asleep?" Cara Lance opened the door, feigning ignorance. "Mother, I just finished bathing and was about to go to bed." "Is something the matter?" Hearing her daughter's voice, Ivy Lance's worry finally subsided. "There was an assassin in the manor just now," she said. "I heard they ran in this direction. Did you see anything?" "I haven't seen any assassins," Cara Lance said slowly. Chapter 9, Assassin in the Manor. Ivy Lance's eyes held a trace of weariness, likely awakened by Vivian Langston's commotion. She wasn't dressed warmly, only wearing a thin robe. Vivian Langston, on the other hand, wore a pink silk robe with a fox-fur-trimmed outer garment, her elaborate makeup accentuating her allure. As Vivian Langston stood beside Ivy Lance with a smug expression, Kara Lance glanced at her indifferently, a flicker of coldness in her eyes. Seeing Kara Lance, Ivy Lance quickly took her hands, carefully examining her from head to toe. Only after confirming she was unharmed did she breathe a sigh of relief, her concern evident. Assured of Kara Lance's safety, Ivy Lance said, "Since Kara is all right, everyone may disperse. Vivian Langston, you should return to your chambers and rest. You may be able to endure, but the child in your womb may not." Vivian Langston, unwilling to let the matter drop, said slowly, "Eldest Miss, someone saw the assassin running towards your lady's chambers. For your safety, I believe it's best to have the servants search your room. It would be better to confirm the assassin isn't hiding there." Knowing her intentions were malicious, Kara Lance said coldly, "My chambers are not a place a concubine like you can search on a whim." Her icy gaze met Vivian Langston's, causing the latter's heart to skip a beat. The once timid and frail eldest miss now possessed an intimidating aura. Vivian Langston's arrogance faltered, but having gone this far, she couldn't back down. Forcing a smile, she said, "Eldest Miss, I only speak out of concern for your well-being." Kara Lance's expression remained cold and noncommittal. Stepping aside slightly, she said, "Watch closely." Vivian Langston's heart leaped with anticipation, but Kara Lance continued, "But if nothing is found, don't blame me for showing no mercy." The servants, about to rush into the room, hesitated. Vivian Langston, however, remained undeterred, convinced the assassin was inside. She eagerly awaited Kara Lance's explanation. Vivian Langston snapped, "Go in and search. If you are negligent and something happens to the eldest miss, can you bear the consequences?" At her command, the hesitant servants finally entered Kara Lance's chambers. A short while later, they emerged empty-handed. "My lady, eldest miss, concubine Vivian Langston, we found no assassin inside." Vivian Langston was astonished. She clearly saw someone enter Kara Lance's room. How could there be no one there? Recalling Kara Lance's words, she said uneasily, "Perhaps I was mistaken. If the assassin isn't here, then I'm relieved. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." With that, Vivian Langston turned to go. Kara Lance denied her the opportunity, retorting, "What do you mean, concubine? Are you leveraging father's favor to falsely accuse and provoke my mother and me again? The main wife's quarters are not yours to enter and exit as you please, much less with a mob barging into my room. Who gave you the audacity to act so recklessly?" Vivian Langston was speechless. Kara Lance continued, feigning distress as she dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief, "I know you dislike my mother and me, concubine, but we have never mistreated you or given you cause for offense. We have endured all your difficulties, even the poisoning incident with the bird's nest soup, which we chose not to pursue. Why won't you relent and let us live in peace?" Vivian Langston stammered, "I," but before she could finish, Elliot Lance arrived, his gaze fixed coldly on her. Flustered and indignant, Vivian Langston pleaded, "My lord. I." Elliot Lance rebuked her, "When will you learn to behave? Can you not live without stirring up trouble? Causing such a commotion in the middle of the night, you're a disgrace." He then flung his sleeve and departed. Watching Elliot Lance storm off and Vivian Langston's expression shift to anxiety and regret, Kara Lance felt a surge of satisfaction. Once everyone had left, Kara Lance closed the door and hurried to the bathtub. As Ivy Lance and Vivian Langston approached her room, she had devised a plan, concealing a cloaked figure within her bathtub. The bathwater, still fragrant with scattered flower petals, provided excellent camouflage. With a sly smile, Kara Lance said, "All right, they're gone. You can come out now." As her words faded, the cloaked figure emerged from the bathtub, unaware that his face covering had slipped. Kara Lance recognized him as Tristan Royce, the 9th prince of the Tristan kingdom. Puzzled, she recalled Helena Lance's dying words about Victor Royce marrying her to find something. Could Tristan Royce's nocturnal visit to Lance Manor be for the same reason? Cara Lance addressed him coldly, "I never expected the esteemed ninth prince to resort to such clandestine activities." You. Tristan Royce was both angry and irritated. This woman had dared to hide him in her bathwater. You what? Give me the antidote, Cara Lance demanded, extending her hand, unconcerned with his state of mind, focused solely on obtaining the antidote. I intended to give you the antidote after you helped me escape, but you. Tristan Royce said, exasperated. If you refuse, I'll simply raise the alarm and expose you as an intruder, Cara Lance countered, raising an eyebrow. Recognizing her resolve, Tristan Royce reluctantly produced the antidote. Here, he said, then leaned in, inhaling near her neck. You smell delightful. I wonder how my fourth brother would react to this. With a wicked smile, he leaped and vanished from her chambers. Cara Lance, realizing Tristan Royce's audacity, found him already gone, the chance for a retort lost. The encounter left Cara Lance restless, unable to find sleep despite changing into her nightclothes. Cara Lance suspected Tristan Royce also coveted the throne, his cunning deception masking his true ambition. In her past life, Victor Royce seized every opportunity, ascending the throne and eliminating potential rivals, including herself, a pawn discarded after being used against Tristan Royce. Cara Lance pondered the mysterious force influencing the imperial succession, determined to obtain it to gain control over her destiny. Chapter 10, a tempestuous feast each year, as winter's plum blossoms bloomed, Lance Manor hosted a grand feast, inviting noble ladies and daughters from across the capital. This plum blossom viewing served as a social gathering to strengthen alliances and connections. Despite her lack of favor, Ivy Lance meticulously oversaw the annual plum blossom feast, managing every detail of the grand event. Under her careful preparations, the plum blossom feast was finally ready. Cara Lance arose early, adorning herself in a simple white ensemble, a touch of elegance with a single jade plum blossom hairpin. She first paid her respects to Ivy Lance. Thanks to Leonard Gray's remedies, Ivy Lance's health steadily improved. After breakfasting together, mother and daughter proceeded to the main hall to receive their guests. As they sat sipping tea, Sophia Lincoln and Helena Lance arrived. Sophia Lincoln, vibrant in a lotus-pink gown and pale gold shawl, exuded a captivating allure. Helena Lance, charming in a red, begonia-embroidered gown and white fur cloak, appeared sweet and innocent. Cara Lance observed their ostentatious display, anticipating their attempt to steal the spotlight, but resolved to thwart their plans. Sophia Lincoln, feigning pleasantries, inquired about Ivy Lance's well-being, inwardly suspicious of her improving health. Beneath her facade of cordiality, Sophia Lincoln seethed with resentment towards Ivy Lance's position, compelled to maintain appearances for her daughter's sake. After greeting Ivy Lance, Helena Lance approached Cara Lance, taking her hand and initiating conversation. Cara Lance offered a faint smile, responding to her pretense. Soon after, the noble ladies and young mistresses began to arrive. Ivy Lance, occupied with receiving guests, no longer had time for other matters. Though favored by Elliot Lance, Sophia Lincoln, as a concubine, could not formally appear. As boredom settled upon Cara Lance, fourth Prince Victor Royce entered. Disgust and unease immediately washed over Cara Lance, while a flicker of delight sparked in Helena Lance's eyes upon seeing Victor Royce, quickly masked given the public setting. After exchanging greetings with Ivy Lance, Victor Royce made his way towards them. Sophia Lincoln, after offering a curtsy to Victor Royce, excused herself. Upon seeing Cara Lance, Victor Royce's eyes flashed with astonishment. He had never noticed her breathtaking beauty, like a celestial being amidst the snow. Witnessing this, Helena Lance clenched her handkerchief in a grip of fury. Your Highness, Helena Lance, unable to bear Victor Royce's gaze fixed upon Cara Lance, stepped forward, feigning a curtsy to draw his attention. Hearing Helena Lance's voice, Victor Royce, realizing his impropriety, composed himself and said, "Rise." He then approached Cara Lance, a gentle smile gracing his lips. "I haven't had time to visit you lately. Are you feeling better?" His voice held an unprecedented softness. Cara Lance, unwilling to engage, offered a slight smile and a curt reply, "Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. I have recovered." Inwardly, she scoffed, "No time to visit me? Likely spent enjoying Helena Lance's company. But his absence is preferable, sparing me the revulsion." Her gaze drifted, landing upon a familiar figure, her close friend, Bella Hart. She recalled Bella's unwavering kindness in her past life, even venturing to visit her in the desolate cold palace after her banishment. Her previous life had been fraught with misfortune. As a secondary daughter, her marriage had been orchestrated by the primary wife. Though wed as the principal wife to Nziheo, son of the Minister of Rights, he was a philanderer who held her in no regard, frequenting brothels and lavishing attention on his concubines. Memories of her past life brought tears to Cara Lance's eyes. She hastened to greet her friend. "Bella, you've come," Cara Lance exclaimed, taking Bella Hart's hand with genuine joy. "Yes, I heard you were unwell recently and haven't had a chance to visit. Are you feeling better now?" Bella Hart inquired solicitously, her gaze assessing Cara Lance from head to toe. Warmth filled Cara Lance's heart at the genuine concern in Bella Hart's eyes. "All right, stop staring. I've recovered, I'm fine," she reassured her gently. Relieved, Bella Hart replied, "That's good to hear." A mischievous grin spread across her face. "It's been a while, and you've become even more beautiful, more stylish too. It seems our Cara has grown up." Bella Hart's words brought a blush to Cara Lance's cheeks. Playfully pinching Bella Hart's cheek, she retorted, "You dare tease me? I think you're the one who's become more mischievous." Observing the close bond between Cara Lance and Bella Hart, Helena Lance realized that Cara Lance, since recovering from her near drowning, had grown distant. Could Cara Lance have discovered something? Prompted by Bella Hart's remark, Helena Lance noticed Cara Lance's enhanced beauty. Her white garments accentuated an ethereal grace, a celestial presence that stirred unease within Helena Lance, causing her to avert her gaze. Glancing towards Victor Royce, Helena Lance saw him fixated on Cara Lance, his eyes filled with open admiration and desire. Helena Lance was startled. The timid, fragile Cara Lance now posed a threat. Cara Lance had always been a stepping stone, but now, caution was necessary. When the guests had arrived, Ivy Lance led them to the plum blossom garden. The plum blossoms were in full bloom, their fragrance wafting through the air. Crimson blossoms blazed like fire, while white blossoms shimmered like snow, a breathtaking spectacle of color. Bella Hart placed a blossoming plum branch in Cara Lance's hair, declaring, "Truly, Cara, you are radiant, like a plum blossom fairy." "Oh, I couldn't compare to you," Cara Lance demurred, placing a crimson plum blossom in Bella Hart's hair. Bella Hart, in a rose-pink robe and white overgarment, possessed a graceful figure and a lovely oval face. The plum blossom in her hair enhanced her captivating beauty. Cara Lance and Bella Hart, engrossed in their playful exchange, remained oblivious to the two watchful gazes from afar. "14th brother, are you truly smitten with the general's eldest daughter? Don't blame me for not warning you, she is betrothed to our 4th brother. Abandon this misguided infatuation. Moreover, you are ill-suited," Tristan Royce sternly addressed Adrian Royce within the plum grove. Adrian Royce, captivated by Cara Lance, remained deaf to Tristan Royce's words. Witnessing his brother's infatuation, Tristan Royce shook his head, sighing at this ill-fated attraction, regretting the day he brought Adrian Royce to Leonard Gray's residence. Tristan Royce had always regarded Adrian Royce as a true brother, sharing joys and sorrows, a rare bond within the imperial family. He cherished this connection and worried that Cara Lance would ruin Adrian Royce's life. The image of Cara Lance's ethereal face and her flustered reaction to his teasing brought a smile to Tristan Royce's lips. He quickly composed himself, chiding his thoughts of her. He hadn't intended to visit Lance Manor, but unable to dissuade Adrian Royce, he accompanied him. He also sought to familiarize himself with the layout of Lance Manor, anticipating future searches for a certain item. Chapter 11, Helena Lance's fall. Cara Lance and Bella Hart, engaged in conversation, arrived at the lakeside. The lotus blossoms had faded, leaving only a few mandarin ducks gliding across the water, adding a touch of life to the scene. Amidst their laughter, Helena Lance approached, accompanied by Victor Royce and Vivian Langston. As they drew near, Helena Lance pouted and said, "Elder sister truly favors Bella. Bella has only just arrived, and you've already forgotten about your younger sister." She then affected a shy demeanor. Hearing this, Cara Lance lightly tapped Helena Lance's forehead and said, "Only you are petty. Bella and I haven't seen each other in a long time and wish to chat. You're jealous. You enjoy acting, so I'll indulge you." Helena Lance was about to say something more when Victor Royce spoke up. "Cara, where did the two of you go? Why didn't you invite us along?" His eyes were full of adoration. Helena Lance felt a surge of discomfort, the handkerchief in her hand nearly crumpled beyond recognition. Cara Lance replied calmly, "We went to the plum garden for a while." Victor Royce was about to continue when Vivian Langston, standing beside him, stroked her belly and gestured towards the mandarin ducks on the lake, saying, "The mandarin ducks on the lake are truly beautiful." Hearing this, everyone instinctively looked towards the lake. Cara Lance discreetly observed Vivian Langston, who was now standing behind her, right by the lake's edge. She quickly discerned Vivian Langston's scheme and formulated a plan. Quick as a thought, Cara Lance shifted her position and pulled Helena Lance towards her, exclaiming, "Helena." Just as Helena Lance was pulled, Vivian Langston's hand reached out. With a splash, Helena Lance fell into the lake. Cara Lance stumbled, nearly falling in after her, but Bella Hart quickly caught her. Immediately, the noble ladies and young misses who were enjoying the plum blossoms and conversing nearby were drawn to the commotion. As Helena Lance struggled in the lake, everyone watched in alarm. Cara Lance feigned panic and ran to Victor Royce as if seeking his help. Beneath her wide cloak, her hand retrieved a fragrance sachet. Victor Royce felt his mind suddenly become disoriented and jumped into the lake. The cold water brought him back to his senses, and he quickly swam towards Helena Lance, pulling her ashore shortly after. At this moment, Sophia Lincoln also arrived. She saw a drenched Victor Royce holding an equally soaked Helena Lance, whose arms were wrapped around his neck, her face buried in his chest. "What happened? Why did you fall into the lake? Fourth Prince, please put Helena down. Both of your clothes are soaked. Quickly change into something dry." Sophia Lincoln spoke in a flustered tone, hurriedly pulling Helena Lance away from the fourth prince and removing her own cloak to wrap around her. Sophia Lincoln was secretly puzzled. Why was the fourth prince not being more mindful of propriety? There were matrons and maidservants in the estate who knew how to swim. He must have known this, so why did he jump in himself? And why was he so slow to put her down after rescuing her? Everyone knew that the fourth prince was betrothed to Cara Lance, yet here he was, drenched and embracing Helena Lance. How could this not provoke speculation? Even if there was nothing between them, Helena Lance being held like this by Victor Royce was simply improper. Moreover, almost all the noble ladies and young misses in the capital were present today. Once word spread, embellished with gossip, who knew how badly Helena Lance's reputation would be tarnished. At this point, those who had witnessed the entire incident were whispering and pointing. Some remarked on the second miss of Lance Manor's lack of decorum, losing her composure as a young lady of a prominent family in front of so many people. As for Victor Royce, due to his princely status, no one dared to question his actions. Thus, most of the talk centered on Helena Lance, criticizing her for being embraced by the fourth prince without attempting to avoid suspicion, clinging to his neck with both arms and burying her head in his chest. They called her shameless and a disgrace to the Lance Manor name. Cara Lance, standing aside and listening to the discussions, smirked inwardly. Meanwhile, Helena Lance was already shivering from the cold. Although she could hear the harsh words spoken around her, she couldn't retort, for the chill had rendered her speechless, leaving her only with silent resentment. Victor Royce, a man of relatively robust physique, was also significantly affected by the cold. Hearing the gossip about the recent incident, his face darkened. However, mindful of his usual amiable image, he refrained from commenting, maintaining a strained silence while his thoughts raced. Seeing them nearly numb from the frigid lake water, Ivy Lance swiftly ordered servants to escort Helena Lance and Victor Royce to change their clothes and prepare 2 bowls of ginger soup for them. After Helena Lance and Victor Royce had departed, Sophia Lincoln approached Vivian Langston and inquired, "What happened? How did Helena fall into the lake?" Vivian Langston, already guilt-ridden, had intended to push Cara Lance. Unexpectedly, Cara Lance pulled Helena Lance closer, and before Vivian Langston could react, her outstretched hand struck Helena Lance. However, it shouldn't have caused Helena Lance to fall into the lake. Now, faced with Sophia Lincoln's questioning, she nervously adjusted her hair and feigned ignorance. "I don't know how the second miss fell into the lake." Having achieved her objective, Cara Lance decided to suppress the matter for now, deeming it best to confront Vivian Langston after the guests had dispersed. She interjected, "Aunt, perhaps Helena lost her footing and slipped." Then, she shot a warning glance at Sophia Lincoln. Sophia Lincoln understood the implications. Escalating the situation would tarnish Lance Manor's reputation. Though suspicious that it wasn't an accident, she decided to let it rest for the time being. Thus, Sophia Lincoln nodded and said, "I'll go check on Helena." Vivian Langston, relieved, turned and left. Seeing no further spectacle, the onlookers dispersed. Bella Hart's mother, Anna Hart, seized this opportunity to approach. Anna Hart, only in her early 30s, appeared much younger due to a life of luxury and meticulous self-care. Today, she wore a gown of butterfly-patterned brocade embroidered with gold thread, complemented by a lotus-pink cloak. After exchanging pleasantries with Aunt Lon, Cara Lance excused herself and ventured deeper into the plum grove. The secluded area offered respite from the crowd. Cara Lance, relishing the tranquility and freedom from social obligations, immersed herself in the beauty of the plum blossoms. Unexpectedly, the esteemed first miss of Lance Manor would scheme against her own sister and her betrothed. Cara Lance's peaceful contemplation was shattered by a voice laced with insinuation, suggesting he had witnessed the incident at the lake. She instinctively turned to see 9th Prince Tristan Royce regarding her with an enigmatic half-smile. Maintaining her composure, Cara Lance plucked a plum blossom branch and responded, "What does your highness mean? I don't understand." Tristan Royce stepped closer, inhaling the fragrance of the plum blossom in Cara Lance's hand. Then, he stated, "Just now, the second miss of Lance Manor, and my 4th brother, were likely affected by your drug, causing them to fall into the lake. This drug induces a loss of consciousness upon proximity, with recovery upon contact with water. However, if one falls into water after exposure and then emerges, it acts as an aphrodisiac, igniting intense desire. Am I correct, Cara Lance?" Cara Lance found herself unable to offer an explanation. Her current strategy hinged on discerning his intentions. Fixing her gaze upon Tristan Royce, she inquired, "May I ask, your 9th Highness, what purpose brings you to sneak into another's estate in the dead of night? Is it to expose me and seek justice for your 4th brother?" Tristan Royce raised an eyebrow, surprised by Cara Lance's astuteness. He looked at her again, a flicker of intrigue in his eyes. "Rest assured, I won't breathe a word. However, I am curious. Your 4th brother is your betrothed. Harming him doesn't seem to benefit you in any way. Hashtag Chapter 12, striking a bargain. Kara Lance's eyes widened at his words. This is my affair, it has nothing to do with you. Kara Lance's face was cold. Without looking at Tristan Royce, she turned to leave. Could it be you've discovered something untoward between your fourth brother and your second sister? Tristan Royce's voice rang out as Kara Lance took a few steps away. Kara Lance paused. This ninth prince was remarkably well informed. Composing herself, Kara Lance turned back to Tristan Royce, a faint smile playing on her lips. Since you already know, how about we strike a bargain? Each of us gets what we desire. Tristan Royce had expected her to flee, struck by a painful truth, but she returned. His gaze sharpened. A bargain? Indeed, a bargain. You help me dissolve my engagement with fourth Prince Victor Royce, and I'll help you find what you seek. Kara Lance met Tristan Royce's gaze directly. Dissolve the engagement? Fourth brother is the son of the Empress of the Middle Palace, the most likely heir to the throne. Do you not desire to be Empress? Even if there is something between them, as long as the engagement remains, your position is secure. Moreover, if the engagement is dissolved, who in the capital would dare marry you? Tristan Royce suspected he'd misheard. This seemingly fragile woman wished to break off her engagement with the fourth prince. Did she comprehend the magnitude of the consequences? Kara Lance neither confirmed nor denied, stating simply, this is my affair. I would rather live a solitary life than share a husband. Don't you find your thinking rather naive? Tristan Royce was taken aback once more. Yet, looking at her slender figure, her eyes lonely and lost, a flicker of pity stirred within him. Not naive. I know what I'm doing, what I want, and the consequences. I will also take responsibility for my actions. The lost look vanished from Kara Lance's eyes, replaced by unwavering resolve. You. Tristan Royce was speechless, unsure what to say. A gentle breeze rustled the plum blossoms, as if something was breaking free from its confines. My marriage pales in comparison to your grand ambitions. What are your thoughts, your ninth highness, on my proposal? Tristan Royce was stunned. He hadn't expected such sharp insight from a sheltered noblewoman. He stepped closer, his eyes glinting with a dangerous light. Aren't you afraid that knowing too much will put your life in danger? Kara Lance's lips curled slightly as she lifted her gaze to meet Tristan Royce's. If I were afraid, she stated, I wouldn't be here. Tristan Royce paused, unsure how to respond. Trusting Kara Lance didn't come easily. Seeing his hesitation, Kara Lance added, when your highness trusts me, then seek me out. With that, she turned and departed. Tristan Royce watched her graceful figure disappear into the plum grove. He stood amidst the sea of plum blossoms, lost in thought. Kara Lance's proposition stirred him. However, her betrothal to Victor Royce raised a red flag. He couldn't rule out a trap. Unless he was absolutely certain, he wouldn't act. The hour for the midday meal arrived, and everyone gathered, finding their places. Tables were arranged along the sides of the hall, leaving a central space for the noble ladies to showcase their talents during the banquet. Many young women eagerly awaited this opportunity to display their accomplishments, hoping to gain renown and secure a desirable husband. With all three princes present, the ladies were even more determined not to miss this chance. Helena Lance, having fallen into the water, did not reappear. Sophia Lincoln also excused herself from the banquet, citing the need to care for her daughter. Victor Royce, having changed into fresh attire, sat with Tristan Royce and Adrian Royce at the highest position, his complexion still pale. Kara Lance, meanwhile, settled at a table in the center right of the hall with Bella Hart, conversing as they ate. The first to perform was Kate Stone, daughter of Grand Marshal Randy Stone. Skilled in all the arts, she excelled in calligraphy. With a brush in each hand, she fluidly rendered the four characters, beautiful time and scenery, virtuous officials, beautiful scene, onto the paper. As a servant displayed the calligraphy, murmurs of admiration filled the hall. The beauty of the script was undeniable, but her ambidextrous skill further impressed the onlookers, earning her the title of calligraphy prodigy. Basking in the praise, Kate Stone couldn't suppress a proud smile. Glancing towards the princes, however, she noticed their lack of reaction. Her smile faltered. Her attempt to impress them had seemingly failed, leaving the usually haughty Kate Stone deflated. Next, Lila White, daughter of censor Howard White, took the stage. Lila White possessed an oval face and lively eyes. She wore a pleated gown of pale pink silk, the sleeves embroidered with vibrant yellow chrysanthemums and the collar edged with pink thread. Magnolia blossoms, stitched in white, adorned the hem, and a cloud-patterned silk robe with gold-embroidered butterflies completed her ensemble. A skilled musician, she carried a pipa. She began, lotus emerging from water. The pipa's notes flowed like a babbling brook, gentle as a soft rain, intimate as whispers in a bridal chamber. The music captured the lotus's noble essence, its purity amidst the mud, leaving the audience with the impression of inhaling the flower's delicate fragrance. As the last note faded, the audience remained spellbound. Lila White gracefully descended from the stage. It seems the capital holds a wealth of women blessed with both beauty and talent. Victor Royce drained his wine cup, addressing Tristan Royce and Adrian Royce. What's this? Could fourth brother's heart be stirred by these women? That won't do, you're betrothed to the eldest daughter of Lance Manor, don't be so greedy. Tristan Royce swirled his wine, his tone teasing as he glanced at Adrian Royce, his words intended to bring his brother back to his senses. Look at what ninth brother is saying, I was merely jesting. Victor Royce suddenly felt his amusement fade, turning his attention elsewhere. Hearing Tristan Royce's words, Adrian Royce's spirits sank, and he drank his wine in solitude. As they conversed, Sophia Lincoln's niece, Hannah Lincoln, took the stage, performing a dance titled, Flowing Clouds and Streaming Water. Cara Lance glanced at Victor Royce, observing his captivated gaze, a cold smile playing on her lips. A true libertine, she thought to herself. Her gaze shifted to Tristan Royce, who seemed indifferent to Hannah Lincoln's performance, slowly savoring his wine. Adrian Royce, however, appeared intoxicated, staring intently at her. Startled, she quickly averted her eyes. Hannah Lincoln, ever proud, had meticulously prepared for this dance, knowing all three princes would be present. Noticing that only the fourth prince watched her while the other two remained uninterested, a flicker of annoyance sparked within her. Victor Royce, the fourth prince, was betrothed to Cara Lance. Even if he were interested in her, what good would it do? The thought intensified her jealousy towards Cara Lance. Her eyes darted around the room, a scheme taking root in her mind. Chapter 13, The Empress's Position. As the music ended, Hannah Lincoln turned to Cara Lance, a smile gracing her lips. I've heard tales of the unparalleled beauty of the eldest daughter of Lance Manor's dancing. Perhaps we could be graced with a performance today, allowing everyone here to admire your skill. Hannah Lincoln had heard from Helena Lance that Cara Lance was timid and lacked any real talent. Yet, this seemingly useless girl had the fortunate destiny of being betrothed to the fourth prince. Cara Lance understood that in the eyes of others, she was still perceived as timid and frail, lacking in any discernible skill. Hannah Lincoln's request was nothing more than a thinly veiled attempt to humiliate her publicly. However, she was no longer the shy and fearful girl of the past. With a gentle smile, Cara Lance replied, Lady Lincoln, you flatter me. My dancing is naturally inferior to yours. Hannah Lincoln's smile broadened at the expected response. Indeed, her dancing had always been exceptional. As she prepared to speak, Cara Lance continued, however, since we are all gathered here today for this rare occasion, I shall offer a dance for your entertainment. Ivy Lance, hearing her daughter agree to dance, felt a surge of worry. She had never known her daughter to possess any dancing skills. Hannah Lincoln, anticipating a refusal, had prepared a string of insults. Kara Lance's acceptance caught her completely off guard. Yet, she remained unfazed. Helena Lance had assured her that Kara Lance couldn't dance at all. Ignoring Hannah Lincoln, Kara Lance curtsied slightly. "With your permission, I shall retire to change my attire." With that, she rose and departed the hall. By the time Kara Lance returned to the feast, she was adorned in a vibrant red gown, a crimson plum blossom branch held delicately in her hand. Her skin was as white as snow, her raven hair swept up into an elegant topknot. Victor Royce, upon seeing Kara Lance, was struck speechless by her breathtaking beauty. Tristan Royce was similarly stunned, while Adrian Royce, utterly captivated, couldn't tear his eyes away. Kara Lance approached Bella Hart, extending her right hand. "The dance needs music," she said. "Sister Bella, would you grace us with a performance of Red Plum Blossom in the Snow?" Bella Hart readily agreed, taking Kara Lance's hand and accompanying her to the center of the hall. Her musical talent was exceptional, though her humble nature kept it largely unknown. She gracefully approached the guqin, bowed slightly, and sat with delicate poise. Her jade-like fingers danced across the strings, producing a melody that was both clear and ethereal. Kara Lance moved with the music, like a butterfly in flight, a falling leaf drifting on the air, a blossom unfurling in the breeze. When the performance ended, praises echoed throughout the hall. "Lady Lance's dancing is truly unparalleled, and Lady Grey's music is like the sound of heaven itself," they exclaimed. Ivy Lance, witnessing her daughter's exquisite dance, felt a mixture of awe and joy. Hannah Lincoln, seething with rage, nearly shattered her wine cup. She hadn't anticipated Kara Lance's remarkable dancing prowess. Her own attempt to impress had backfired spectacularly, leaving her overshadowed and humiliated. Kara Lance, arm in arm with Bella Hart, returned to her seat. Seeing Hannah Lincoln's contorted face, a cold smile played on her lips. Unbeknownst to them, Kara Lance had secretly honed her dancing skills to please Victor Royce. Not even Helena Lance knew of her dedication. In her past life, her dance had gone unappreciated. In this life, her hard-won skill would no longer be dedicated to any single person. Tristan Royce, observing Adrian Royce's enthralled expression, recognized his brother's infatuation and shook his head with a sigh of resignation. As the feast concluded and guests departed, Sophia Lincoln and Helena Lance, upon hearing of Kara Lance's triumph, were consumed by a rage that made them wish they could strangle her. They had been completely unaware of Kara Lance's dancing ability, let alone its captivating beauty. "It's all your fault, you useless girl." Sophia Lincoln seethed, pressing a finger against Helena Lance's forehead. "I had everything arranged for you to shine at the feast, but you had to fall into the lake. Now that little harlot, Kara Lance, has stolen all the glory, and you've become the laughingstock of the entire capital." "Mother, it wasn't intentional," Helena Lance protested, her voice choked with tears. "I felt a bit dizzy, and then someone bumped into me, and I fell. But the push wasn't strong, I don't think I was deliberately pushed." She was understandably furious. Her fall into the lake had forced her to withdraw, allowing Kara Lance to seize the spotlight. The injustice of it all gnawed at her, it should have been her moment to shine. Victor Royce's unusually warm demeanor towards Kara Lance further fueled her resentment. Sophia Lincoln, who had instructed Vivian Langston to find an opportunity to push Kara Lance into the water, now saw the consequences fall upon her own daughter. "Do you know who bumped into you?" she asked cautiously. "I don't know. At the time, I was somewhat dazed. I only felt a slight push." Helena Lance frowned, carefully recalling the events, yet unable to piece together a clear memory. "It seems you've been plotted against." Sophia Lincoln slammed the table, her voice filled with resentment. "It must be that wretch, Kara Lance." Helena Lance furiously crumpled the handkerchief in her hands, ripping it to shreds. "Logically, it shouldn't be her. Does she even possess such cunning?" Sophia Lincoln also suspected Kara Lance, but given her nature, such a scheme seemed unlikely. Ordinarily, she indeed lacks such wit. However, I've always felt that ever since she awoke from her fall into the water, she's been different, difficult to fathom. Helena Lance voiced her long-held suspicion. It seems we must be wary of Kara Lance from now on. This lowly servant girl, to think she would. Sophia Lincoln's eyes flashed with malice. But, mother, am I to simply accept this unwarranted fall into the water and let the culprit go unpunished? Helena Lance protested indignantly. Rest assured, my dear, I will avenge this wrong for you. However, you must also keep the fourth prince content. The Empress's throne belongs to you, and Kara Lance will merely serve as your stepping stone. Sophia Lincoln took Helena Lance's hand, gently patting it, her gaze deep and meaningful. Observing Sophia Lincoln's confident demeanor, Helena Lance felt reassured. A smug smile played on her lips as she nodded subtly. The following day was the 15th of the month, a day when the entire Lance household traditionally dined together for breakfast and dinner. After preparing herself, Kara Lance sought out Ivy Lance to accompany her to the main hall. Elliot Lance, Sophia Lincoln, and Vivian Langston had already arrived. Elliot Lance occupied the seat of honor, flanked by Sophia Lincoln and Vivian Langston. Upon seeing Kara Lance and Ivy Lance enter, Vivian Langston remarked coldly, "It seems Madam is weary from yesterday's exertions, arriving so late." Ivy Lance ignored her, completing the customary greetings with Kara Lance before proceeding to their seats. As Kara Lance sat, she smiled and replied, "As the mistress of the Lance household, Mother diligently manages all affairs, great and small. Such dedication is her duty, and any weariness is only natural." Vivian Langston scoffed and turned away, dismissing Kara Lance. Sophia Lincoln, irked by Kara Lance's repeated references to Ivy Lance as the mistress of the household, remarked pointedly, "Indeed, elder sister labors tirelessly for the household." However, the lack of railings around the plum garden pond led to Helena's unfortunate fall into the water yesterday. She remains feverish. Kara Lance inwardly sneered. Sophia Lincoln was indeed astute, recognizing the lack of evidence to prove Helena Lance had been pushed. By attributing the incident to an oversight, she subtly blamed Ivy Lance for negligent management. Feigning surprise and concern, Kara Lance inquired, "Is my younger sister feverish? Is it serious? I intended to visit her last night, but it was late, and I feared disturbing her rest. However, second aunt is right. This is indeed an oversight on Mother's part. After all, who would be so malicious as to push someone into the water in this cold weather?" Vivian Langston, already apprehensive, grew tenser at these words, her fingers twisting her handkerchief, a small gesture that didn't escape Kara Lance's notice. Kara Lance, her gaze fixed on Vivian Langston's hands, stated, "Vivian Langston, you'll shred that handkerchief, but rest assured, though I have proof you pushed my sister, I believe father, considering your pregnancy, won't act against you." Elliot Lance, observing Vivian Langston's evident anxiety in the crumpled handkerchief, understood the situation perfectly. However, given her pregnancy and the potential for a long-awaited son, he wouldn't pursue the matter. Furthermore, Helena Lance's embarrassing embrace of the fourth prince after falling into the water yesterday had caused him such shame that he couldn't escalate the situation to defend her. "Enough of this, let's eat." Reassured, Vivian Langston picked up her chopsticks and ate in silence. Sophia Lincoln seethed inwardly, fuming at Vivian Langston's ineptitude, her composure so easily shattered by Kara Lance's pointed words. This left Sophia in an unspeakable predicament. #### Chapter 14, Visiting Helena. Lance. After breakfast, Kara Lance and Ivy Lance discussed visiting Helena Lance. Upon returning with autumn snow, Kara Lance found Lucy Brown dozing at the bedroom door. Kara Lance's recent coldness towards Lucy Brown, favoring autumn snow's attendance, had led to Lucy Brown's increasing negligence, now evident in her early morning slumber. Kara Lance, walking directly to autumn snow, instructed, "Wake Lucy Brown and summon all the maids and servants of this courtyard." I intend to re-establish order. Autumn Snow acknowledged the command and promptly roused Lucy Brown. Autumn Snow whispered, "The lady summons you." Cara Lance, seated on the divan, sipped her tea as the assembled maids and servants gathered. Her gaze swept over the indolent group before her, realizing her previous leniency had fostered disrespect among the staff. "Lucy Brown, kneel." Cara Lance commanded, her eyes fixed on Lucy Brown. Lucy Brown, terrified, dropped to her knees, exclaiming, "My lady, what have I done wrong? Sleeping at this hour. Do you still consider me the first miss?" Cara Lance slammed her teacup down. "My lady, my tasks have been heavy lately. Exhaustion overcame me, I drifted off unintentionally. I beg your forgiveness. It won't happen again." Lucy Brown, startled by Cara Lance's sudden severity, pleaded, sweat beading on her brow. "Are you implying I've been too harsh?" Cara Lance raised an eyebrow, her gaze cold. "That wasn't my intention, my lady," Lucy Brown stammered, realizing her words had worsened her situation. "If I pardon you today, everyone will follow suit, pleading for forgiveness after every transgression. This courtyard will descend into chaos. Someone, administer 20 lashes and dock 3 months' wages. My lady, please, spare me. I won't do it again." Lucy Brown's pleas were ignored as Cara Lance continued, "I expect diligent service from all of you. Let Lucy Brown's fate serve as a warning against laziness and deceit." Upon hearing this, everyone shed their indolence, and Lucy Brown dared not utter another word. Cara Lance, observing their reactions, recognized the success of her display of power. As for Lucy Brown, if she remained obedient, perhaps she would be spared. But if she dared to betray her, she would show no mercy. Dismissing the others, she retained only Autumn Snow to assist her in changing attire. She donned a violet silk gown, adorned with a gold-threaded brocade overrobe. Her dark hair, simply styled, was graced with a single jade hairpin, reflecting an elegant composure. Once prepared, she led Autumn Snow to seek Ivy Lance. Halfway there, they encountered Ivy Lance and Mama Marie, the latter carrying a lacquered box, a gift for Helena Lance. Together, they proceeded towards the eastern courtyard, where they espied Fourth Prince Victor Royce approaching. "Fourth Prince, how is it you arrive so early today?" Ivy Lance inquired, a smile gracing her lips. "Having some free time, I came to visit Sister Cara." "Where are you all headed?" Victor Royce, his gaze fixed upon Cara Lance, responded to Ivy Lance with a touch of distraction. Ivy Lance, heartened by his attentiveness, saw a promising future for her daughter with the Fourth Prince. "Helena caught a chill yesterday after falling into the water. Cara and I were going to see her, but I've just remembered some pressing matters. Perhaps the two of you could go together." Victor Royce, captivated by Cara Lance since their meeting the previous day, readily agreed to Ivy Lance's subtle suggestion. "If you have business, madam, then I shall accompany Cara." Cara Lance, inwardly resigned, maintained a polite, if distant, smile. Once Ivy Lance had departed, Victor Royce turned to Cara Lance, his voice softening. "Cara, shall we go?" Cara Lance replied with a simple, "Please, your highness, lead the way." She then gestured for Victor Royce to precede her, maintaining a respectful distance of 3 paces. Victor Royce, puzzled by Cara Lance's coolness, refrained from further comment due to the presence of servants, and continued onward. Helena Lance, informed of Cara Lance and Victor Royce's joint visit, felt a surge of displeasure. Weakly striking the bed with her hand, she vented her frustration to Sophia Lincoln, seated at her bedside. "Mother, look at that vixen. A true temptress. I saw yesterday how the Fourth Prince looked at her. If this continues, he will truly fall for her charms." Weakened by fever, her voice trailed off, leaving her breathless after this outburst. Sophia Lincoln, though equally angered, maintained her composure. "You are still unwell. Do not trouble yourself with such thoughts. Let the fourth prince see you in this state, and he will only be repulsed. Helena Lance, grasping her mother's meaning, immediately feigned weakness. Sophia Lincoln, pleased with her daughter's quick understanding, smiled and patted her hand reassuringly. Victor Royce and Cara Lance entered together. Upon entering, Cara Lance discreetly surveyed the room, noting the lavish furnishings, a testament to Elliot Lance's favoritism towards Helena Lance. They surpassed even her own, despite her status as the eldest, legitimate daughter. Greetings, fourth prince. Sophia Lincoln rose and offered a slight bow. Victor Royce curtly dismissed further formalities with a "no need for excessive courtesy," briefly conversing with her before turning his attention away from Sophia Lincoln. Sophia, understanding the unspoken dismissal, excused herself. "I have some matters to attend to." "Please, continue your conversation." Cara Lance walked directly past Victor Royce to Helena Lance's bedside, solicitously inquiring, "Helena, are you feeling any better?" Lying in bed, Helena Lance, even without cosmetics, appeared all the more fragile and vulnerable. "Somewhat," Helena Lance replied weakly, unwilling to engage with Cara Lance. "My head is still a bit dizzy." Victor Royce, standing before her bed, observed her weakened state, his former compassion now gone. "Second miss must take better care of her health," he stated. A warm smile touched Helena Lance's pale face at Victor Royce's apparent concern. "Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. I will." Her initial irritation dissipated, but resurfaced with a vengeance as she glanced up to find him focused solely on Cara Lance. "You are Cara's sister, thus naturally my sister as well. Caring for you is simply what I should do." "There's no need for such formality," Victor Royce replied distractedly, his attention wholly consumed by Cara Lance, his past affections for Helena Lance forgotten. Helena Lance, her face ashen, mind blank, stood speechless, unsure how to respond. Cara Lance, observing everything, saw the advantage of accompanying Victor Royce. It clearly irritated Helena Lance. Maintaining a facade of concern, she said, "I obtained some ginseng from mother for you, sister. I hope you recover quickly." Suppressing her jealousy, Helena Lance offered a weak smile. "Sister, you are too kind. I don't know how to repay such generosity." Her focus remained on feigning vulnerability before Victor Royce, hoping to regain his sympathy. "Don't mention it. You are my sister, caring for you is only natural," Cara Lance replied, her smile widening in satisfaction at Helena Lance's strained expression. After a brief exchange with Helena Lance, Cara Lance and Victor Royce departed. Helena Lance watched Cara Lance's retreating figure, her eyes flashing with malice, her hands clenched into fists. Chapter 15, a scheme unfolds on their return journey. Victor Royce attempted to engage Cara Lance in conversation, but she remained aloof, offering minimal responses. Upon exiting the eastern courtyard, Cara Lance stopped, turning to Victor Royce. "Your Highness, I have some matters to attend to. Please excuse me for not seeing you off." Reluctant to let the opportunity slip away, Victor Royce smoothly offered, "What is it?" "I happen to be free. Perhaps I can assist you." Cara Lance furrowed her brow, feigning difficulty. "This matter, it is a woman's affair, Your Highness. I fear it would be inconvenient for you. Please forgive my impoliteness." "In that case, I shall visit you again tomorrow," Victor Royce conceded with his characteristically charming smile. His slightly curved eyes, straight nose, and pale pink lips were undeniably captivating. Cara Lance was momentarily stunned. She couldn't blame her past self for being completely manipulated by him. Even now, she felt a flicker of that old enchantment. But this time, she was fully aware. "Your Highness, I am unavailable tomorrow." Cara Lance, irked by Victor Royce's persistence, feigned a troubled expression, her revulsion barely concealed. "Even a moment longer in your presence is unbearable." Victor Royce, frowning at her evident distaste, questioned, "Cara, have I erred? Have I caused such displeasure that you shun my company?" Not at all, your highness, Kara Lance responded, recoiling slightly with a look of alarm. I truly have pressing matters. Once resolved, I shall personally offer my apologies. If that is the case, I shall respect your obligations, Victor Royce conceded, his tone softening. However, as we are betrothed, we should cultivate our affections with shared time. He sought to reassure her, fearing he had frightened her. Kara Lance murmured an assent, and Victor Royce, pleased by her compliance, took his leave. With Victor Royce's departure, Kara Lance breathed a sigh of relief. Betrothed or not, she resolved, she would never marry him. Upon returning to her chambers, Kara Lance learned that Mama Marie awaited her, having arrived some time ago. Mama Marie, to what do I owe the pleasure? She inquired, her voice melodious. Ensuring their privacy, Mama Marie approached Kara Lance and whispered, My lady, the traitor in your mother's household has been identified. Kara Lance momentarily faltered but quickly composed herself, replying, Then I shall attend my mother at once. Mama Marie offered a gentle smile. Very well, my lady. I shall take my leave. After Mama Marie's departure, Kara Lance adjusted her attire and, accompanied by Autumn Snow, proceeded to Ivy Lance's quarters. The approaching new year brought a blanket of snow, punctuated by occasional gusts of icy wind. Ivy Lance sat upon a divan, a melancholic air about her. Beside her stood Mama Marie, her countenance a mixture of sternness and indignation. Kara Lance approached and softly addressed her mother. Mother. Ivy Lance's somber expression yielded to a warm smile as she extended a hand to Kara Lance. Kara, come sit beside me. Seated next to Ivy Lance, Kara Lance spoke in hushed tones. Mother, Mama Marie informed me that the treacherous viper in our midst has been exposed. Indeed, Ivy Lance confirmed, her smile fading into a frown. The news reached me just today. Who is it? Kara Lance inquired. My lady, Mama Marie reported, her head slightly bowed but eyes flashing with anger, it is May Brooke. Despite the kindness Madame bestowed upon her, she has betrayed us. My observations revealed her frequent visits to the East Pavilion, coinciding with Madame's medication. It is likely she procured the poison there. Our vigilance has spared Madame from an untimely demise. Kara Lance, delicately turning her teacup, remarked, I recall you mentioning May Brooke's paramour. Your memory serves you well, my lady, Mama Marie affirmed. She has a lover, a scholar named Henry Young, of meager means, preparing for the imperial examinations. Reports indicate May Brooke frequently provides him with financial support. Kara Lance scoffed, thinking to herself, another woman blinded by love, without resentment or regret. I wonder if this Henry Young truly loves May Brooke, or if he's after her silver. I've never mistreated her. Why would she do this to me? Ivy Lance slammed her hand on the table, barely concealing her fury. Both Mama Marie and Kara Lance were stunned, they had rarely seen the usually gentle Ivy Lance in such a rage. Mother, don't be angry. It's not worth harming yourself over such a person. Remember, some die for wealth, as birds die for bait, Kara Lance said softly, taking Ivy Lance's hand. Indeed, madam. The eldest miss is right. It's not worth it. Should I have someone bring May Brooke here for a proper lesson? Mama Marie inquired. Yes, Mama Marie, bring her to me at once. She must be punished, Ivy Lance said angrily, her brow furrowed. It was understandable. Ivy Lance treated her servants well, a rare kindness many would envy. That someone under her care would betray her was naturally infuriating. Mother, we can't alert her, Kara Lance said quickly, shaking her head. Why not? Ivy Lance asked, surprised, looking at Kara Lance questioningly. Dealing with her now would only warn those behind this. It's better to wait for the right moment, use her as bait, and expose the true culprit, Kara Lance explained, her eyes gleaming. Both Ivy Lance and Mama Marie were taken aback, impressed by Cara Lance's foresight. The eldest miss is wise. I was foolish, Mama Marie said with a smile, openly admiring Cara Lance. Of course. We'll do as Cara suggests, Ivy Lance said softly, her furrowed brow relaxing. She felt her daughter had changed, sharpened by recent events, but she wasn't sure if this was a blessing or a curse. Cara Lance nodded and said to Mama Marie, if Mother agrees, please continue to have her watched. We'll act when she makes a move, but be discreet. She mustn't suspect anything. Yes, I'll inform you immediately, eldest miss, if anything happens, Mama Marie replied respectfully, bowing her head slightly. Good. How are you feeling, Mother? Cara Lance asked, taking a sip of tea. Much better, Ivy Lance replied, a smile replacing her earlier gloom. The new medicine was working. That's wonderful. We should visit Leonard Gray again soon for another checkup, Cara Lance said happily, squeezing Ivy Lance's hand. Her mother's health was all that mattered, everything else was falling into place. After a bit more casual conversation, Cara Lance and Autumn Snow returned to their quarters. The wind outside was biting. Autumn Snow quickly closed the door and brought Cara Lance a cup of warm milk. Miss, that May Brooke is truly ungrateful. Madam treated her well, better than most could hope for. How could she do such a thing? Autumn Snow said indignantly. Cara Lance sipped her hot milk and remarked, such individuals are commonplace, one grows accustomed to them. Don't we have one right beside us? Autumn Snow, startled, questioned, what? Lucy Brown. I haven't treated her poorly, Cara Lance murmured, a slight smile playing on her lips. What? My lady speaks of Lucy Brown. She. Autumn Snow gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief as she stared at Cara Lance. Understanding dawned, it explained Cara Lance's recent coldness towards Lucy Brown. Yet, their close bond made betrayal seem impossible. Increased vigilance was necessary. Despite their sisterhood, no harm would come to the eldest daughter. Chapter 16, Aspiring to the Heights. As Cara Lance applied her cosmetics, a servant announced Elliot Lance's summons, informing her of 4th Prince Victor Royce's arrival. Cara Lance frowned, pondering Victor Royce's sudden renewed interest. His previous indifference contrasted sharply with his current frequent visits. Had his affections shifted? Had he grown tired of Helena Lance? Despite her inner displeasure, Cara Lance agreed with a smile. If Victor Royce desired to play both sides, he would face the consequences. A cryptic smile touched Cara Lance's lips. Autumn Snow, inform Lucy Brown that I intend to dine with the 4th Prince today and request her company, Cara Lance instructed, turning slightly. My lady, why? You have a betrothal with the 4th Prince. Why involve the second miss? Autumn Snow inquired, puzzled. Others coveted such a powerful and handsome husband, she couldn't understand Cara Lance's apparent disregard for this private opportunity. It's nothing. Simply do as I say, Cara Lance replied calmly, her gaze lowered. Hearing this, Autumn Snow ceased her objections and sought out Lucy Brown. Lucy Brown's eyes lit up at Autumn Snow's words, barely concealing her delight. Her evident excitement at the 4th Prince's presence, coupled with her hasty adjustments to her attire and hair, did not escape Autumn Snow's notice. Why would Lucy Brown rejoice at the 4th Prince's visit? Lost in thought, Autumn Snow returned to relay Lucy Brown's reaction to Cara Lance. Cara Lance merely chuckled, it seems she dreams of rising to become a phoenix. What? I misheard. Lucy Brown. She dares to aspire to be the 4th Prince's consort. Autumn Snow exclaimed, her eyes widening in astonishment. Many harbor such lofty ambitions. It's not unusual. She possesses some beauty, such thoughts are understandable. Water flows to low places, and people aspire to the heights. Cara Lance remained composed, as if detached from the situation. But, young miss, the fourth prince is your betrothed. How dare she entertain such notions? Autumn Snow, now comprehending, felt indignant on Cara Lance's behalf, her fingers fidgeting with her handkerchief. Cara Lance scoffed softly, we are not yet wed. Who knows what the future holds? As they spoke, Helena Lance approached gracefully, clad in a bamboo green robe adorned with pink blossoms. Crimson silk thread embroidered exquisite moon orchids upon her sleeves, a vision of captivating beauty. A violet sash cinched her waist, accentuating her delicate figure. Elder sister, Helena Lance greeted with a practiced smile. Cara Lance scoffed inwardly, noting the meticulous preparation. Few men, she thought, could resist such a display. Younger sister, you've arrived, Cara Lance said, taking Helena Lance's hand and leading her to a seat beside the bed. Indeed, elder sister. Lucy Brown just informed me of the situation. I hurried my preparations, lest you wait too long, Helena Lance replied, her hand clasping Cara Lance's with feigned intimacy. A blush colored her cheeks, lending her a gentle, feminine air. My younger sister is enchanting, no matter her attire, Cara Lance said, subtly withdrawing her hand, a faint smile playing on her lips. Lest I wait too long. How thoughtful. More likely, she feared keeping Victor Royce waiting. Elder sister teases. I cannot compare to your beauty, Helena Lance demurred, though inwardly she preened at the compliment. Her words, however, drew Helena Lance's attention to Cara Lance's appearance. Today, her elder sister was truly radiant in a dark violet robe adorned with auspicious cloud patterns. The violet embroidery swirled around the hem, giving her an ethereal air, like a celestial being descending through the clouds. A touch of rouge and powder enhanced her delicate features, adding to her otherworldly beauty. Cara Lance's beauty eclipsed her own, a realization that struck Helena Lance with a pang of unease and envy. A flicker of resentment flashed in her eyes. Nonsense, younger sister is always so modest. With the new year approaching, perhaps we should plan an outing to purchase some fashionable fabrics for new garments, Cara Lance said, her fingers toying with the lid of a teacup, though Helena Lance's fleeting resentment did not escape her notice. At that moment, Lucy Brown entered, her attire more elaborate than usual. A small rose-pink flower adorned her hair, lending her a touch of charm. It seemed her ambitions were indeed inappropriate. Lucy Brown curtsied slightly. My ladies, the fourth prince has arrived. Then quickly show him in, Cara Lance instructed, setting down her teacup. Yes, my lady, Lucy Brown replied, smoothing her hair and clothing as she withdrew. Helena Lance also discreetly adjusted her attire and hair. Cara Lance observed the two women with a cool detachment. Sighing inwardly. Victor Royce was nothing but trouble. Were any men truly trustworthy? Perhaps both she and Helena Lance were merely pawns in Victor Royce's game. Helena Lance seemed content with such a role, but Cara Lance was not. Lost in thought, Cara Lance barely registered Victor Royce's entrance. He wore an ice-blue silk outer robe, the sleeves embroidered with elegant bamboo leaf patterns edged in snowy white. Helena Lance's eyes lit up. She smoothed her robes once more before joining Cara Lance in rising to greet him. Victor Royce, seemingly oblivious to Helena Lance, took Cara Lance's hand. No need for formalities. Please, be seated. Helena Lance witnessed this scene, and resentment surged within her. Since the plum blossom banquet, the fourth prince had grown considerably colder towards her, while showering Cara Lance with attentive care. Cara Lance rose and withdrew her hand, leaving Victor Royce awkwardly retracting his own. He forced a laugh, saying, I heard you ladies chatting merrily on my way here. What were you discussing? We were just planning a shopping trip to buy some fabrics for new clothes, Cara Lance replied softly, her head slightly bowed. After a pause, she added, just frivolous feminine chatter, unworthy of the fourth prince's attention. Don't say that, Cara. Let's seize the day. I'm free today, so I'll join you. But, how could we dare trouble you to accompany us on a shopping trip? You are my betrothed. It's only natural for me to accompany you, Victor Royce responded tenderly, his gaze fixed on Kara Lance. Hearing these words, Helena Lance's heart was in turmoil. Her eyes widened slightly as she looked at Victor Royce with heartache. Were all his sweet words, his vows of eternal love, his promises of a lifetime together, nothing but lies? Could he utter the same words to another woman? Kara Lance glanced at Helena Lance, a cold smile playing on her lips as she noted her shocked expression. If she was so upset by Victor Royce's attentiveness, then let her see more. Very well, then, Kara Lance said gently. Turning to Autumn Snow, she instructed, Autumn Snow, please have the carriage prepared. We're going shopping. Yes, Miss, Autumn Snow replied, then withdrew. The carriage was quickly prepared. The three of them rode together in the larger carriage, while Autumn Snow and Helena Lance's personal maid, Agatha, traveled in a smaller one. Inside the carriage, Victor Royce spoke almost exclusively to Kara Lance, treating Helena Lance as if she were invisible. However, Kara Lance maintained a certain distance from him. This awkward atmosphere persisted for half an hour until they finally reached the capital's most bustling street. Victor Royce alighted from the carriage and extended his hand to assist Kara Lance. She, however, offered her hand to Autumn Snow instead. As Victor Royce awkwardly began to retract his hand, Helena Lance emerged from the carriage. Seeing this, she placed her hand in his, and he, in turn, helped her down. Despite this, Victor Royce felt a pang of displeasure. He had humbled himself, yet Kara Lance had shown him no respect. Throughout their outing, Kara Lance maintained a cheerful facade with Victor Royce, but a closer look revealed a subtle distance. For instance, she made every effort to avoid letting him pay for her purchases. Helena Lance, on the other hand, seized every opportunity to be near Victor Royce, while Kara Lance feigned ignorance. Autumn Snow, observing Helena Lance shamelessly flirting with her mistress's betrothed, felt a surge of anger and treated her with open disdain. They visited a jewelry shop and a clothing store. As midday approached, Kara Lance suggested they dine at the capital's finest restaurant, making up for the previous occasion when she couldn't accompany Victor Royce. Helena Lance had learned that Victor Royce had sought out Kara Lance after their previous encounter. While secretly pleased by Kara Lance's refusal, she still resented Victor Royce's initiative, for in her heart, he belonged to her. Victor Royce's coldness towards her today, coupled with his attentiveness to Kara Lance, stirred a deep unease within her, leaving her distracted. She yearned to return to her estate, dispatch a servant with a message for Victor Royce, summon him alone, and demand an explanation. She clung to the belief that his heart belonged solely to her, convinced that his actions were merely a charade in his pursuit of the imperial throne. Unbeknownst to them, Tristan Royce observed their every move, his eyes gleaming with intrigue as he witnessed the unfolding drama. Chapter 17, a transaction amidst Plum Blossom's time, in its relentless march, brought them swiftly to New Year's Eve. The eve of the new year dawned fair, as if the heavens themselves wished to bestow a prosperous year upon all. The heavy snowfall had ceased, and the sun's rays, kissing the earth, transformed the remaining snow into a glistening spectacle. Plum blossoms, proud and defiant, stood amidst the snow, like resilient celestial beings, their beauty undiminished by the harsh winter. They bloomed with audacious splendor, their fragrance, carried by the wind, permeating the air and captivating all who encountered it. Within the estate, Ivy Lance had orchestrated a vibrant display of decorations. Crimson patterns adorned every window, and red lanterns hung from each pillar, immersing the Prime Minister's residence in the festive spirit of the new year. In the Celestial Kingdom, New Year's Eve was traditionally a time for families to gather and share a reunion dinner. New Year's Day was reserved for exchanging greetings with kin and friends, while court officials of the third rank and above, accompanied by their families, were expected to attend the New Year's banquet hosted by the reigning emperor. Kara Lance rose early, eager to embrace the joy of her first new year since her rebirth. She chose a lotus-pink silk gown embroidered with phoenixes, and draped a golden apricot shawl, adorned with peony blossoms, over her shoulders, accentuating her snow-white skin. After completing her toilette, she proceeded to Ivy Lance's chambers, accompanied by Autumn Snow. Ivy Lance had also just finished preparing. She wore a crimson robe embroidered with blossoming plum blossoms in gold thread, the design flowing from the hem to her waist, cinched by a wide, dark purple sash that emphasized her graceful figure. A light purple gauze overrobe shimmered with every movement. Seeing Kara Lance standing at the doorway with a smile, she hurried towards her, saying, "Why have you come so early? Do come in, lest you catch a chill." Allowing Ivy Lance to lead her into the room, Kara Lance replied with a smile, "Mother, you look so beautiful, I was momentarily captivated and forgot the cold." Her words rang true. Though nearing 30, Ivy Lance possessed a mature allure. A blush colored Ivy Lance's cheeks. She gently tapped Kara Lance's forehead, saying, "You mischievous girl, you've grown bold enough to tease your mother." "I'm being sincere, mother." "You truly are radiant," Kara Lance insisted, settling onto the bed. "You have a silver tongue." "I'm old now, hardly beautiful," Ivy Lance demurred, a flicker of sadness in her eyes. Her beauty had never captured the attention of the man she loved. The adage, "A woman adorns herself for the one who pleases her," held a bitter truth. The man for whom she meticulously prepared each day had never truly seen her. His heart belonged to another. Witnessing Ivy Lance's grief, Kara Lance understood it stemmed from Elliot Lance, a pain she shared. She vowed to end this suffering and reclaim what rightfully belonged to them, starting tonight. Shifting the subject, she said, "I came early to snag breakfast with you, mother. I'm famished." Her playful whine made Ivy Lance laugh, and even Mama Marie, standing nearby, chuckled. "My little glutton," Ivy Lance said affectionately, then instructed Mama Marie, serve breakfast. "Yes, madam," Mama Marie replied, then withdrew. Soon, breakfast was laid out, Job's tears and red date soup, lotus root noodles, gingered bok choy, and red rice porridge. All were Kara Lance's favorites. She picked up her spoon and ate eagerly. Seeing her daughter's hearty appetite pleased Ivy Lance, and she joined the meal. After breakfast with Ivy Lance, Kara Lance departed for the plum grove to admire the blossoming trees in solitude. The plum grove was tranquil, with only her present. No, not just her. Kara Lance stopped. "Who's there? Why are you following me?" "Lady Lance is perceptive," a deep, resonant male voice responded. A white figure emerged from behind a plum tree. Kara Lance turned, offering no curtsy, only a cold smile. "The 9th Prince of the Celestial Kingdom enjoys lurking, does he?" The Lady of Lance Manor addresses this prince without a curtsy, speaking insolently. "Do you not fear punishment for such disrespect?" Victor Royce smirked, a playful glint in his eyes, his brow arched. "You're not afraid, so why should I be? At worst, I'll reveal the 9th Prince's clandestine visit to Lance Manor, stalking a defenseless woman with ill intent," Kara Lance retorted calmly, her voice clear as a chime. Victor Royce was momentarily speechless. This woman consistently left him at a loss for words. And he could do nothing about it. She was only the second woman in his world to hold such power over him. "Lady Lance has a sharp tongue," Victor Royce said, a slight huff in his voice. "I thank the 9th Prince for the compliment," Kara Lance replied with a slight nod. "You needn't stand on ceremony," Victor Royce said, turning away with a hint of pique. "You wouldn't be here without a reason, 9th Prince. What brings you to me?" Kara Lance asked, a subtle smile playing on her lips. "Lady Lance is refreshingly direct." "I find your previous proposal quite intriguing," Victor Royce answered. "I knew the 9th Prince was a man of intellect," Kara Lance's smile widened. "You possess remarkable confidence," Victor Royce said, drawing closer, his movements fluid and almost ethereal. An audacity. Do you not fear my disrespect? As the ninth prince is well aware, I've never been one to cower before threats. You. Tristan Royce was again rendered speechless. I'll inform you if I find any leads on what you seek. When the time comes for action, I expect the ninth prince's full cooperation, Cara Lance said, ignoring Tristan Royce's anger, a faint smile gracing her lips. Having spoken, she disregarded him, turning to leave, only to see a group approaching. From afar, she recognized Sophia Lincoln, Helena Lance, Vivian Langston, and their attendants, including Lucy Brown. Humph, Lucy Brown surely saw her with the ninth prince and fetched Sophia Lincoln and the others to stage a catching in the act scene, accusing her of illicit relations, she thought. Thinking fast, she tugged Tristan Royce's hand. Quickly, let's go. What's this about? Are you offering yourself as a reward? Tristan Royce, bewildered, tightened his grip on Cara Lance's hand, a playful smirk on his lips. A fine thought, indeed. People are coming. If they see us here, I'm doomed. I want nothing to do with you, Cara Lance said urgently, ignoring his teasing. A flicker of annoyance crossed Tristan Royce's mind. Was he truly that repulsive to her? He scanned their surroundings, spotting a rock garden with a small cave. With the group closing in, Tristan Royce, without hesitation, swept Cara Lance into his arms, and with a few light steps, they reached the base of the rock garden. Quickly, inside, he urged, pointing to the small cave. What? Cara Lance asked, bewildered and disoriented. Get in if you don't want to die. Understanding dawned on Cara Lance, and she entered. Once Cara Lance was inside, Tristan Royce concealed the entrance with snow before slipping in after her. Now, face to face, bodies close, the atmosphere grew intimate. Hashtag Chapter 18, New Year's Eve flustered, Cara Lance lowered her gaze, avoiding his eyes. Taller than her, Tristan Royce observed the blush rising on her cheeks as she looked down, enhancing her beauty. He'd never seen her so vulnerable, a stark contrast to her usual demeanor. A ripple of emotion stirred within Tristan Royce, his heart quickening. Yet, he wouldn't allow himself to fall for her. She was the woman his 14th brother loved. His 14th brother was his only family in this world, he would never do anything to hurt him. He agreed to cooperate with her to help her break off the engagement, giving his 14th brother a chance. Therefore, he absolutely would not love her. He didn't know then that some things couldn't be controlled. Love is love, and no one can dictate its course. Suddenly, a woman's furious and disappointed voice echoed from outside. Didn't you say that slut was here meeting a man? Where are they? It was Helena Lance. I don't know. I truly saw her talking with a man in white here, Lucy Brown replied, her voice laced with panic. Cara Lance scoffed inwardly. Lucy Brown couldn't be allowed to remain. Humph, useless. You can't even handle such a small task, Sophia Lincoln sneered. Sister, don't be angry. Perhaps they discovered something and fled, Vivian Langston offered placatingly. It appears Sophia Lincoln and Vivian Langston have conspired together. However, the incense in Vivian Langston's chambers is clearly problematic, and her pregnancy seems unstable. Could it be? Cara Lance listened quietly to the commotion outside. These individuals, she would deal with each one, thoroughly. After a long while, the outside quieted down again, they likely returned, having failed to find them. It seems you have many enemies, Tristan Royce teased. So what? Cara Lance retorted, unyielding. However, seeing your confidence, and the foolishness of those women, they are surely no match for you. I shall observe how you handle them. You. Cara Lance was astonished, he had seen through her thoughts. Rest assured, I won't reveal anything, Tristan Royce murmured, leaning closer. As you wish, Cara Lance replied, then wriggled out of the small hollow and quickly departed. Tristan Royce watched her resolute figure amidst the white snow and plum blossoms, a pang of protectiveness rising within him. She was but a delicate woman, born into a general's household. To protect herself and those she cared for, she had become unyielding, yet her heart was likely fragile. He thought, even if it were for his 14th brother's sake, he must protect her and her family. Kara Lance returned to her room, where Autumn Snow sat embroidering flowers. Seeing Kara Lance, she quickly set down her needle and rose. "Miss, you've returned," Autumn Snow said. "Yes, what are you working on?" Kara Lance asked with a smile. "I'm embroidering a fragrance sachet for you, Mississippi. It's almost finished." Autumn Snow replied, presenting the sachet. Kara Lance accepted the sachet, observing the golden piece embroidered on one side and the nearly completed happiness on the other. Each stitch was exquisite, demonstrating Autumn Snow's dedication. Recalling those who had sought to harm her, Kara Lance felt a surge of warmth looking at the crimson sachet, tears welling in her eyes. Alarmed, Autumn Snow asked, "Miss, what's wrong? Did I do something wrong?" "It's nothing, just touched." "Autumn Snow, you're so good to me," Kara Lance said, wiping away her tears. "Not at all, compared to what you've done for me, this is nothing," Autumn Snow replied sincerely. "Your loyalty won't go unrewarded. Autumn Snow, rest assured, I won't let you suffer injustice. When the time comes, I'll find you a good husband," Kara Lance assured her, taking her hand. Autumn Snow quickly responded, "Miss, are you sending me away?" "No, that's not my intention. I just want to find you a good home," Kara Lance clarified, slightly puzzled. "I won't marry. I'll serve you my whole life, unless you no longer need me," Autumn Snow declared, her gaze unwavering. "Sister," Kara Lance forced a smile, falling silent before asking, "By the way, what has Lucy Brown been doing today?" "Lucy Brown? After I parted ways with you, miss, I returned to the courtyard. Lucy Brown inquired why I hadn't accompanied you, and I explained you were enjoying the plum blossoms. A short while later, she mentioned needing to fetch embroidery thread from the storehouse to mend some clothes, then left. She's just returned, but I didn't see her carrying anything. Is something amiss?" Autumn Snow recounted meticulously, puzzled by Kara Lance's inquiry about Lucy Brown. "It's nothing, just a casual question. Keep a closer eye on Lucy Brown from now on," Kara Lance said, unable to divulge the recent events to Autumn Snow, opting instead to gloss over the matter. "Yes, miss, I will certainly observe her more closely," Autumn Snow replied. "I'm quite fatigued from all the walking. I'll rest for a while. There's no need to wake me for lunch. Come for me at dinner," Kara Lance yawned, weary from the day's events. "Yes, Mississippi, rest well." Autumn Snow, with those words, took her needlework and the fragrance sachet and departed. After Autumn Snow's departure, Kara Lance went directly to her writing desk, picking up the medical text Leonard Gray had given her. She always studied it diligently, a little extra knowledge never hurt. After reading for about an hour, overwhelming drowsiness compelled her to sleep, fully clothed. She slept for an unknown duration, half awakening to Autumn Snow's call. "Autumn Snow," Kara Lance murmured drowsily. "Miss, it's time to wake up. It's getting late, and we must prepare for dinner," Autumn Snow said softly. "Oh, all right," Kara Lance rubbed her eyes, sitting up. Once Autumn Snow had assisted her with her preparations, Kara Lance retrieved the handkerchief she had obtained from Ivy Lance earlier, a cryptic smile playing on her lips as she led Autumn Snow to the main hall. Every year, the New Year's Eve banquet was held in the main hall of Lance Manor. The spacious main hall provided ample room for musical and dance performances. She was certain tonight would be a sleepless night for many. Ivy Lance was bustling about in the main hall upon their arrival. "Mother," Kara Lance called from the entrance. "Kara, you've arrived. Come in quickly," "It's cold outside." Ivy Lance greeted her with a smile and a wave. Cara Lance obediently went to Ivy Lance's side. "Mother, you must be exhausted with so much to do today." "I'm not tired," Ivy Lance replied, stroking Cara Lance's hair, though the weariness in her eyes betrayed her words. At that moment, Sophia Lincoln and Helena Lance entered. Sophia Lincoln was resplendent in a pale green silk robe embroidered with large peonies, a rose-pink skirt adorned with daffodils that trailed on the floor, and a long red overcoat featuring phoenixes amidst peonies. Her flowing hair was adorned with a jade hairpin studded with pearls, creating a captivating image. Helena Lance wore a pale pink silk gown with a rose-colored damask overjacket trimmed with snow-white fur, accentuating her youthful charm. A rose-pink sash cinched her waist, highlighting her slender figure. Two figures approached side by side, nodding courteously to Ivy Lance. "High Consort, blessings upon the new year," they greeted. Ivy Lance smiled warmly in return. "Emily, Helena, a blessed new year to you both. The feast is about to commence, please find your seats and await the Lord's arrival for the festivities to begin." Sophia Lincoln addressed Ivy Lance with a gentle smile. "High Consort, you must be weary after such a busy day." "Not at all," Ivy Lance replied. "These are my duties, and I am honored to fulfill them." Sophia Lincoln's inward vexation was masked by a composed expression. "Lance Manor is vast, and its affairs numerous. High Consort, you must safeguard your health and avoid overexertion." Cara Lance stepped forward, a graceful smile adorning her face. "Concubine Sophia, your concern for my mother is touching. Allow me to express my gratitude on her behalf." "There's no need for such formality, eldest Miss," Sophia Lincoln responded. "The High Consort and I share a history of deep friendship.